Welcome to the February 17th, 2015 meeting of the Downers Grove Village Council. It's my privilege and pleasure to call tonight's meeting to order. There are copies of our meeting agenda on either side of the room. If you haven't already done so, I would invite you to please pick up a copy. You can follow along with our proceedings tonight. There will be multiple opportunities for public comment, both with respect to items that are on our agenda tonight, as well as an opportunity for public comment of a general nature under item number 4, which coincidentally is labeled public comments. We proudly begin our meetings every week by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. So at this point, I would like to invite everyone to please rise and join us in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. With that, I'd like to ask our village clerk, April Holden, to please call the roll.
Commissioner Jose?
Here.
Commissioner Olson? Commissioner Reinhardt? Rankin? I'm sorry. Commissioner Rankin? Commissioner Barnett?
Freudian slip.
Commissioner Neustadt?
Here.
Commissioner Durkin?
Here.
Mayor Tully?
Here, thank you very much. Brings us to item 3 on our agenda, which pertains to minutes of council meetings. We have one set of council meeting minutes to review and approve tonight. Those are our minutes from our regular council meeting on February 10th, 2015. Are there any changes, corrections, comments, or otherwise with respect to those minutes from any members of the council? Seeing that there are none, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Those minutes are approved. And with that, brings us to item 4, public comments. This is an opportunity for members of our audience who are still filtering in to make comments or ask questions of a general nature with respect to items that are not appearing on our agenda tonight. If it pertains to an agenda item, we would ask that you wait until that point in time. This is the opportunity for questions and comments of a general nature. The protocol, as already being aptly demonstrated, is to approach the podium, introduce yourself, and we would welcome hearing from you. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Tully, council members. My name is Douglas Gilbert. I'm a preservation architect based in Oak Park, Illinois, and I'm here to speak this evening about 942 Maple Avenue, also known as the Edwards House. I have 20 years of experience as a preservation-based architect, restoring, rehabilitating buildings, and also revitalizing communities across the state of Illinois and in the Chicago region. And I've worked recently with the Maple Avenue Preservation Association, providing them with some advice and counseling. I've written a few things through the various hearings that have gone on regarding the hearing for the condo development for that property. I also served on the survey team led by the Lakota Group that did the architectural survey for the village in 2013. And you may have read my letter dated February 5th regarding this issue. I'm not going to repeat too much of what was in the letter, so I just encourage you to read it if you had not. What I wanted to talk about was to re-emphasize the significance and architectural significance and importance of the Edwards House. It is what we call a high-style, Queen Anne-style home. And the Queen Anne, which was very popular at the end of the 19th century, there's a number of examples in Downers Grove, but this one is, in my assessment, is really at the top in comparative to the other Queen Anne style houses on Maple Avenue, and even compares very favorably to some exceptional ones that are found in the Prince subdivision. We surveyed almost 900 properties, and only about 7.5% of those were listed as significant properties. And so it's a small number, and even within that small number, there's degrees of significance. And my letter talks a little more about the comparisons with other Queen Anne homes on the street. But as I say, it's really quite fantastic. It has 2 turrets, not just one corner turret. It has the broad front porch, which is typical, but it also has a 2-story front porch. It has window bays, it has projecting gables, it has decorative features and elements on the exterior that are very common. It has art glass windows on the inside. There's original oak trim and a beautiful staircase. All the typical things that you see, but there's so many of them. And that's one of the things that makes this house so unique. And it has what we call integrity, which means it really hasn't been altered from its historic appearance. And the reason why this is important is because obviously this house is threatened by this condo development. And what I really want to emphasize here this evening is, in all the conversations that are going on about the efforts to try to maybe move the house, is for you all to look at this as a comprehensive development project. You're getting a developer that is coming in, he's going to build a condo development that is going to provide economic benefit and cultural benefit to your community. I presume that's why the majority of you voted in favor of it. You're going to have increase in property taxes, you're going to have new taxpayers in town, they're going to visit your businesses, they're going to help you downtown. A number of these things were talked about in the hearings before. I believe the developer is going to be paying a development impact fee to things like the school districts, et cetera. And that's a net benefit for your community and for the taxpayers in your community. It does come with some negatives, such as the demolition, the potential demolition of actually 2 properties, including the significant one. But it doesn't have to be that way. Preservation and development are sometimes described as, oh, they conflict and the two can't get along, right? But that doesn't have to be. And you have an opportunity for essentially a public-private partnership in which another property owner nearby would move the house and save it by moving that. And one of the things that preservationists sometimes are accused of in these sorts of debates is, well, you know, it's great, you know, it's a nice building and preservation sounds nice, but we really want somebody to step up, put their money where their mouth is, and actually step in and try to save this building and not just lots of people talking. And actually, you've got that here. You've got a nearby property owner who says, okay, I'll step up, I'll put significant investment in, and I'm going to try to save this house if we can get a deal to move it and deal with some of the logistical and technical issues and some of the financial issues. And so that's a really positive thing that doesn't happen all the time in preservation battles. And so this is really a potential for a win-win scenario for you as a village, in that you've got a new economic development project that's going to provide net economic benefits to you, and you have the opportunity at the same time to save the significant home by moving it, which will also improve the property values of certainly the property where it's going. It has a very modest home on it now on a very large piece of land, and so the property value will increase there. It'll help to stabilize and even improve property values in the residential portion of Maple Avenue that are going to be impacted by this larger scale development. So it's a win-win for the village, it's a win-win for the neighborhood. And I don't want to get into all the details and which tree gets trimmed and, you know, who pays for what. Those are things, but when you're looking at those, think about that broader picture and think about it holistically. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you for providing that additional information. Other questions or comments of a general nature from members of the audience? And we're going to have to hand out numbers. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Bill Schulteis, 5916 Washington Street, and I have some prepared comments to make sure I didn't lose anything in my shaking nerves. I'm here today regarding the reconstruction project in Clyde Estates. My wife and I have been residents there since 1998 with our 2 daughters, and we are very concerned due to the redesign that occurred to the Clyde Estates project after a previous village council meeting. Primarily the elimination of the Washington and 60th Place traffic circle. My wife and I have grown more concerned due to the expanding use and speed of traffic cutting through Clyde Estates. Although we are not aware of any significant accidents to date along this route, we do feel that waiting until one happens is not a proactive solution. The neighborhood has a wonderful rural feeling, though it abuts a high-volume artery on Main Street. Drivers are choosing to use Washington Street as a shortcut, especially in the morning and afternoon commutes. Clyde Estates is not designed nor intended for this kind of traffic behavior. The reconstruction project was a chance to solve this once and for all. The initial design included 2 new intersections at Washington and Clyde, followed by a traffic circle at Washington and 60th. Both improvements would slow at a minimum and hopefully ultimately deter a significant amount of traffic from ever entering the neighborhood at all. Unfortunately, the traffic circle at Washington and 60th Place has been removed in a redesign. It appears that the sole reason for this change is to preserve the single tree that exists on the island currently. At the second community meeting, it was stated by village staff that the village arborist stated that the tree was nearing the end of its expected life. Under the redesign, traffic can now accelerate freely from Clyde to 59th, eliminating the benefit of the work completed at Washington and Clyde. And we are hopeful that the circle can be re-implemented as originally designed or as an expanded circle, which could be included, which would then save the tree. We have reached out to village staff regarding this issue, and although they have been extremely responsive and open to discussing our requests, ultimately they have stated that they are not intending to move back to the original design, which includes the traffic circle. My question to the council is why? The initial meetings regarding the reconstruction had numerous comments from the community that traffic and speed are a significant concern in the neighborhood. The design firm hired by the village delivered the original proposal after hearing from residents, which included this significant safety benefit. And at the second meeting, the traffic circle concept received significant support in its expected effectiveness. And now it's gone. The project is an ideal time to undertake improvements that will not only benefit current residents like myself, but will be a lasting change for the newer generations of families that will be moving into this neighborhood over the coming years. The intersections and the traffic circle only improves the unique and winding nature of the neighborhood streets without the fear of having to share the roadway with high-speed or high-volume traffic. We strongly ask for your action to request village staff to reconsider this request and reinstate the traffic circle at Washington and 60th. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Schultheis. Appreciate you sharing that. We've obviously gotten a lot of input from a number of different perspectives in your neighborhood with respect to various aspects of the proposed project. I think it tends to underscore the competing and divergent interests and desires of the neighborhood and how that can present challenges for a village-sponsored project in that neighborhood. Maybe that classic example where if you try to please everybody, you only succeed in pleasing no one. Thank you for sharing that. Other questions or comments from members of the audience? Good evening.
Good evening, Laurel Bowen, 829 Clyde Drive. I was at the second meeting that the village had on November 13th also, and I don't know if Mr. Schultheis was at the same meeting as I was, but since the village doesn't have any public record of that meeting, we can't determine what the comments were that the public made that were at that meeting. And as I recall, the village forester was not in evidence at that meeting, so him stating that the traffic triangle where he is at 60th and Washington, that tree is perfectly healthy and there was no forester there to say that it was near death. And I also don't recall anyone asking us whether we wanted a traffic circle there, and since we didn't have comment cards at that meeting, there's no proof of what anybody thought about traffic circles. I'm here on behalf of residents that live in Clyde Estates that were unable to be here tonight. They've been at the last 2 meetings, but due to the late comments, the late start of the comments for the public, they had to leave because Dr. Sycra has to get up at 5 in the morning. I'm here on behalf of Dr. Larry and Jean Sycra at 905 Clyde Drive. They live on the corner of Washington and Clyde Drive. Our motivation to purchase a home 30 years ago in Clyde Estates was to live in a quiet, park-like setting. Although we realize that change is sometimes necessary, we strongly disagree with the proposed changes to Clyde Estates. Establishing a different traffic route, building sidewalks and ditches, and demolishing the triangles would be in conflict with our aesthetic and economic values. Repairing the streets is a dire necessity, whereas the expense of the other projects is unnecessary. Perhaps more effort should be spent on securing lower property taxes and increasing social services for residents.
Thank you for your comments. Good evening, welcome.
Thank you. I'm Bea Bennett. I'm at 913 Clyde Drive, and I have a lot of frustration with this project. I've been doing my homework. I looked at the work proposal that was issued in February of 2014, and Christopher Burke was the winning consultant on this project, and he filed an answer, or whatever they file, a report of design, in March of 2014. It's been going on a long time. I just got aware of it around Thanksgiving time. That wasn't just going to be a redo of necessary resurfacing of the streets, but it's going to impact a lot of people. Some people are very lucky. They're not going to have any changes. They don't come to these meetings. They're content. Some people are going to have ditches. They're not so content. Some people are going to have sidewalks right up against, well, much too close for their homes. They'll probably need window shades. I am going to be greatly impacted. I'm going to get 25 feet in front of my house, and I already have 24 feet of easement. So what happened during the snowstorm? You got it. I was snowbound until Thursday. Now, Washington Street, 60th Street, 60th Place, they were out there. I could see the snow plows coming. But I happen to be the only house that has a driveway that needs, I'm the only house with a driveway on this little space of street. That snowplow didn't get there. And finally, during the night, it made it, but it took the grass on the parkway. And as much as I like to give you facts, all I know as a fact is that that street in front of me is 16 feet, 1 inch wide. I don't know how wide a snowplow is. Do you? Do you know how wide that blade is? It took the grass on the parkway and left me, I'm guessing, 6 or 7 feet of snow that I was left to shovel. And when I say shovel, I don't mean snow blow, because I'm not mechanical and my snow blower did not work. Somebody came along and said, I'll help you. Their snow blower didn't work. By that time, I called the village and said, I've got a problem here. It's Tuesday, I still can't get out. Well, the snowplow came back, but it did the very same pass that it did on Sunday. So there I was with all this snow. And I can just imagine how you would feel if we're going to pay for services and you're going to add 25 more feet to my front yard, and it's not even going to be a straight line. What is that snowplow man going to do? How is he going to get out? I asked for markers so the snowplow would know when it's out and past midnight. Where is that street? I have no markers right now. But that was beside what I wanted to talk about tonight. When I was learning about this new project, I got a copy, I was given a copy of the work request for proposal. There are 3 things on it. One is roadway improvements, and it emphasizes in the first sentence, reconstruction of existing road preserving. All right? It doesn't mean taking out 2 streets and putting them in front of my house. It does not say that. It says it's this approach is based on the existing roadway geometry. You did not ask Burke, Christopher Burke and Company, to pull out streets. You did not ask them to redesign it. You asked to maintain it. And I would like you to keep that in mind. Also, part 2 of this said you wanted stormwater improvements. And the stormwater drainage problems in these areas range from low to moderate. I told you before that Clyde Estates is up on a hill. It's one of the highest points in Downers Grove. So if we have low to moderate water problems, where is that water going to go? I went to the Public Works and I talked to Andy Sikich, is that the way you pronounce it? And he said, well, we're going to take those two parkways, we're going to let you keep the trees, we'll take away the streets, and we'll put the water there. Well, that sounds funny. I said, well, how much water will those two parkways hold? How deep will they be? And surprising, it's going to hold 12 inches of water. 12 inches. That's not much. I'm going to get 25 feet, 24 point something feet. But my neighbor across these two parkways is going to get 80 feet added to his lot. I think that's unexcusable. What are you people thinking? It's just not acceptable. So I thought, well, what's the law on this? All right?
Ms. Bennett, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to point something out because there may be other people in the audience here who want to speak about Clyde Estates. Obviously, this is not on the agenda tonight, but it will be on the agenda on March 3rd.
Are you telling me you don't want me to talk anymore?
No, I would never say that to you, ma'am. I was just making a suggestion, but I would like you, though, to perhaps condense your comments a little bit because you do have other people in the audience who would like to speak tonight.
Well, let me continue. I'm not a windbag.
Well, I didn't say you were, ma'am.
Okay.
Although I did notice that you did have an introductory comment before your comment.
Well, that was unplanned.
Fair enough. We all
Okay.
have little things that happen to us in life, and I'm simply just asking you, maybe you could condense it a little bit, because some of the points you've made are already part of the record. I mean, I remember them very clearly, having presented them to us before. And the vote will be on March 3rd.
And I'm not sure what the TV audience has heard. Okay.
Right, although
Okay.
they can watch it because it's recorded and live streamed as many times as they like.
All right. I went for,
If you do us that courtesy, I'd greatly appreciate it.
do what courtesy? Sit down?
No, to try to just condense your comments
Okay.
and maybe wrap up so others can speak. Thank you.
It's hard to regain my momentum. I filed a Freedom of Information Act, and I got something that does not quite relate to Clyde Estates Unit 1, but it does talk about vacating streets. And I found this very interesting, that the council needs to do certain things before you can vacate a street. And the owners of the abutting property are agreeable to such vacation without compensation and have requested these changes. Now, that was in the, then when I was talking to, in this request for proposal, I wanted to know about the hydrology report that's required for stormwater. And I talked again to Mr. Sickrich, and he said that those figures aren't available. And he was unfamiliar with figures from Nan Newland, who on December 2nd said that for water storage, you need 1,000 square feet would be 104 cubic feet. And when I mentioned that to Mr. Sickrich, he had never heard of that, even though Nan Newland is director. So anyway, he mentioned to me that our design consultants, they must submit plans for stormwater permit. As part of the permit application, they submit the hydraulic calculations of all the water sources that will drain into the Clyde Parkways. I found that so revealing that I asked him to repeat it so I could take it down in shorthand. And then I went home and made an affidavit of it, and it's notarized. Because I feel before you start removing streets and turning parkways into retention ponds of 12 inches, you have to know the volume of water that's going to be held, and you have to know where those sources are. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett, and I appreciate you wrapping things up. Thank you. Other questions or comments from members of the audience? Good evening.
Hi, my name is Linda Elsick. I'm on 828 Clyde Avenue, Downers Grove, 60516. That's how I say it all the time on the phone. I'm asking the Downers Grove Village Board to defund the construction of sidewalks in Clyde Estates. The long-term goals of putting sidewalks on every block in Downers Grove, envisioned many years ago, arose during quite a different political and economic time. We had not gone through a nasty recession. The state of Illinois was on better economic footing, which in turn benefited local communities. This is not the case now. I'm asking members of the village board to face 21st century realities instead of dealing with 20th century misplaced goals and save the village $300,000. In many professions, evidence-based practice or decision-making is a term that directs practitioners to base decisions on data or hard facts, not feelings or tradition. I have lived in Clyde Estates since 1986. No child has died walking on our streets. Is a safety concern a real concern, or imagine one that really doesn't exist? Where is the evidence? There are sidewalks on 59th Street between Main and O'Neill Junior High School. A good number of those sidewalks are not shoveled during the winter, and O'Neill and Fairmont kids have to walk on 59th Street. Where is the safety concern? Or does it stop because we have sidewalks? In its plan of construction, Downers Grove is putting drainage for our subdivision in the form of ditches. Next to these ditches will be the sidewalks. Now, we have been told to expect a 2 to 3 foot deep ditch. Is that appropriate to put next to a sidewalk? What about that safety concern? Along the ditches, the construction plan calls for no curbs. That should really result in a beautiful site, sidewalk, ditch, and street, and after about a year or so, overrun grass on the street. A sidewalk is planned in front of the house just east of me, whose property has a tendency to flood at least once a year. Adding more concrete to that area will surely improve drainage, won't it? Mr. Mayor and board members, as a resident of Downers Grove since 1986, I have paid close to $145,000 in taxes. My streets have been in disrepair easily for the last 15 years. Last year, I missed a day of work because we weren't plowed until 3 in the afternoon. I have generally kept my mouth shut, but not anymore. I have invested in my home and kept up my property. I'm hoping when the time comes, I will sell to people who will continue to enjoy Clyde Estates and maintain its uniqueness. This will be hard to do if the village rolls out its unnecessary and unwanted mass of concrete on my property. Clyde Country Estates will then be known as Clyde Concrete Estates.
Thank you for being here tonight and sharing your views. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is John Bardall. Go ahead, Jen.
I'm Chad Morreale.
I'm a second-year medical student at Midwestern University in Downers Grove, and I'm here to talk to you guys about an event that we hold every year. I don't know when you think of 3 minutes, but you know, when I think of 3 minutes, it's sitting in line, maybe getting a coffee, or if we're lucky, getting through the drive-through in 3 minutes. But every 3 minutes, a child is diagnosed with cancer. And I'm not a parent, but I couldn't imagine the feeling of hearing that my child is diagnosed with cancer and everything that comes with that. So for the last 5 years, we've partnered with Bally Doles, and we've held a St. Baldrick's event. And I'm here just to spread the word and try to get the community involved, because over those 5 years, we've raised a total of $131,000 for kids' cancer research. It's a really great event. It's grown past probably our school, and last year alone, we raised almost $60,000. So I just have come here to talk about the event. If you want to add, Chad?
Yeah, like John said, we're just here to reach out to the Downers Grove community. Since Midwestern is part of Downers Grove, we'd like to have as much community involvement in our event as possible. In the past, we've had fire departments shaving at our event, and I've also reached out to them again this year, as well as the police departments. And really anyone in the community is able to help raise money for kids' cancer and participate in shaving their heads at our event. But just to make sure everyone knows, you don't have to shave your head to raise money. You can simply volunteer just to raise money.
Yes, so the event is March 10th. It will start roughly at 6:30. If you go to the St. Baldrick's website and just type in search Ballydole, you'll be brought up to our event. And it's as easy as that. You could click right on there and register to shave, or like Chad said, you don't have to shave and you could just raise money. And we hope you guys could come out and be a part of a fun night, because it really is fun, and it's about the community coming together for such a great cause, which is always a wonderful thing.
Terrific. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. And I was going to ask for a motion that we direct both Commissioner Olson and Barnett to participate in this challenge. So moved. I second that motion. Do I have a second? Oh, my Lord. Tell you what, if I'm still mayor in 2016, I'll shave my head. Good evening. Oh, Ms. Bowman. May I ask you a question?
I'm here for myself.
Oh, okay. But can I just ask you a question? If there's anybody else that wanted to speak first who has already spoken?
I was here for Cycles before.
I know, but can I
Okay.
just ask you if somebody else in the audience would like to speak who hasn't already spoken? No, that's quite a few people. Well, if the gentleman would like, if the gentleman would yield the floor to the lady, that would be fine. It's up to you. But I just want to give people an opportunity to speak who haven't already spoken.
I can yield to the lady.
All right. The gentlemen are yielding to the lady. Thank you for your courtesy.
Laurel Bowen, 829 Clyde Drive. The last few meetings, we've heard all about historic preservation, and the newspaper even had a full-page article about how we're re-examining the historic preservation ordinance in Downers Grove. The sidewalk issue is a policy. It's never been an ordinance, and we've never revisited it. The snow plowing is a policy. We've revisited that numerous times. In fact, in Clyde Estates, when Mayor Cheever was here, she capitulated to our request to have salting just done at the intersections, so the salt would not go into our yards. I'd like to tell you some history about Clyde Estates. It was created in 1952. It used to be a popcorn farm. It was owned by a lady that ran Clyde Savings and Loan in Berwyn. She designed Clyde Estates, and she required that the developer would design it and develop it as she designed it, or she would not sell the property to them. That's why it's called Clyde Country Estates. I'd like the council and the community to recognize that it is historic preservation to maintain Clyde Estates as it is and as it was when we bought it, because we wanted to live on a country lane. We talked about total community development. Oh, by the way, Clyde Estates was developed before any of you were born. Total community development was 23 years ago. There's some issues that were discussed at total community development by various, just a few residents. Each of the 10 committees only had between 6 people and 15 people. A total of 100 people participated, and it was about a 3/4 of a year program. I participated in it, and none of you did. Some of the issues that were discussed and put forth after it was finished was the Village Forestry Department must preserve, replace, and add to the variety and abundance of trees and educate the community as to their care. Maintain transitional areas, buffer zones, to contain retail commercial areas and preserve the integrity of neighborhoods. Maintain the character and diversity of the housing in the community. That was all under Community Preservation Committee. In infrastructure, retain all existing green space corridors and acquire more for purposes of a greenway network throughout the village. And I consider the 3 triangles and our yards to be green space that is important to maintain in our village and our community. And in the Environment Committee, protect groundwater from toxic and other harmful materials, which I discussed about the salt. We had salt deposited on our street last Friday when we just had a dusting the day after they filled some potholes on our street with asphalt. So, of course, that defeats the purpose because the salt is corroding our street. And the mission of the Total Community Development is creating a community vision that will preserve and enhance the quality of life in Downers Grove through the efforts of its most important resources, its people. And I wish that you would consider the quality of our life and not politics when you make your decision on March 3rd.
Thank you, Ms. Bowen. Thank you for your comments. I know there were at least 3 others who wanted to share some comments with us. Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Bo Martin. I'm a resident of Downers Grove. I live at 701 Maple. I've been following the discussions about the relocation of the Edwards House, and I'm here to talk about that in the context of the economics and benefits of relocating that according to the principles of relocation or locational economics. To explain why I feel qualified to talk about the relocation of the Edwards House under economics principles, I'll mention that I studied at the University of Chicago. I started there started my graduate studies there in 1992. I studied under Gary Becker, who received the Nobel Prize while I was there. Some of you might remember him from the Business Week articles that he wrote, and also later the blog he wrote with Judge Posner. I studied under Rob Lucas, who taught me the principles of macroeconomics. He received the Nobel Prize as well. I studied under Jim Heckman, who taught me about econometrics, which is the statistical tools that economists use for predicting the future benefits and costs of investment decisions that people or companies or governments make. I studied the principles of public policy finance under Sam Peltzman, who, as far as I could tell, didn't really care about receiving the Nobel, but taught me a great deal about situations like we have here. I was awarded my master's degree in 1994. I passed my qualifying exams to study, to write a doctoral, to write a dissertation in 1995. I met my wife in 1996. That's a big reason why I'm also speaking before you tonight here. I was awarded my my doctorate degree in 1997. I felt very privileged to go to the University of Chicago. The University of Chicago certainly has a reputation for having a laissez-faire approach to economics. And I did learn along the way that there are occasions when even the principals or the principals taught at the University of Chicago will find that there are situations where government should invest for the future benefit of its community. And I think the relocation of the Edwards House is one situation like that. I'm not an academic. I work as a consultant. As part of my consulting work, I also provide services to governments and to clients about the economic decisions they're making. I once studied the economic benefits and costs of expanding a waste storage facility, also known as a dump, to a city, and we found that it would have been beneficial for them if they went forward with that. I studied the economic benefits and costs of revising the city of Chicago's sale of its future parking meter revenue, which was also a very contentious issue in the city of Chicago. Perhaps closest to home, I've studied the economic benefits and costs to municipalities of changing the state of Illinois' method of distributing sales tax from an origination-based method of distributing sales tax revenue to a destination-based method of distributing their sales tax revenue. I'm not a sociologist. I'm not an anthropologist. I think there are other people who have spoken very well on those points. I'm not an arborist either. I'd like to frame my opinion about the economic benefits, which I think outweigh the costs of relocating the Edwards House by posing what might seem like an oddball question to you all. And that is, have you ever wondered why car dealerships along Ogden Avenue are all so close to each other? And that might at first seem like an odd thing for a car dealership to do. You might imagine if you're selling a Maserati, you want to be as far away from the Ferraris as you possibly can be. Because if a person goes to buy a Maserati, they won't see any of the cars, and they buy your car. But that's actually not what happens. That's not what happens in lots and lots of situations in economics. The Maserati dealership is close to the Ferrari dealership. It's close to the Audi dealership. Going down the line, the Honda dealership is near there. The Acura dealership is in between. And that's because all of those car dealerships have recognized the benefits of locating their asset close to a very similar asset. And if I go shopping for a car, I might not like the Maserati, and therefore I'll go over to the Ferrari, or in my case, a more domestic type of car. And the benefits of locating together is something that we see in lots and lots of situations. That was first observed and written about in 1927. There's a fellow named Hotelling who wrote about that. He wrote a paper, and that paper is still widely cited. It's called Hoteling's Law. That original paper by Hoteling, I looked it up today, and in the past 5 years was cited 2,750 times. So it's a very established principle of locational economics that applies, as I said, to many situations. Another situation here in Downers Grove are the two coffee shops right downtown. Now, you might think that when Caribou Coffee closed, that the corporate owners of that would have relocated to another location, someplace else, a bit further away from Starbucks, but they didn't. They decided to relocate pretty much as close as they can to the Starbucks. And again, it's because there are economic benefits of locating similar types of assets close together. A third example that I could think of just from here in Downers Grove is that every Christmas season I go shopping. I look for small boutiques that will sell things that I can place under the Christmas tree, and I go to Curtis Street. And there are several boutiques also selling very similar types of goods, and I find it very convenient, and certainly the stores have found that it's also very good for their businesses to locate so close to each other. And so similarly, this same principle of locational economics, also called Hoteling's Law, can be applied to the assets held by individuals. And the Edwards House is a great example of that. Because by picking up that house, relocating it to a place that's actually closer to some other houses very similar to it, the value of that house will increase, but also the value of all the other houses. And this might seem counterintuitive. One might think that I should pick up the Edwards house and move it someplace far away, someplace where someone can enjoy it as being somehow distinct or different from all the other houses nearby. But in actuality, if one were to study the economic benefits, the cost of where that house should be located, there will be, according to the principles of locational economics, benefits to all the other houses. And by benefits, I mean increased property values, and by that, consequently, would be increased property taxes. I think that it's difficult to predict what the increase in those property taxes might be. But it's clear that the car dealerships along Ogden Avenue have been very beneficial. It's clear that the people who own Pete's Coffee thought it was to their best interest, and certainly I would imagine to the interests of Downers Grove, you are benefiting well, we are benefiting well from how closely they are located next to each other. The stores on Curtis Avenue benefit from being located very close to each other, and the benefits of relocating the Edwards house to a different location on Maple Avenue would also clearly give some benefits as well, according to those economic principles. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Sometime offline, I want to talk to you about that redistributing a sales tax concept. Follow a little bit of what CMAP's doing. We could have a long talk about that.
Good evening. My name is Tom Taylor. I live next to a Yugo dealership. At a previous meeting, I asked the question if it were possible to move the Edwards house to the corner of Maple and Main, and that was a question that was raised at a Pierce Downer Heritage Alliance meeting sometime in December. Apparently there wasn't much, or isn't still, any interest in doing that. Then I was thinking, wouldn't it be great if the Edwards house were to be moved to village property where currently stand City Hall, Police Department, service facilities, and parking lots. Perhaps this is a win-win solution to this issue. It would become perhaps a cornerstone for the development of a civic center, and could not dictate the design of the buildings that might make up a new civic center, but be in sympathy with them. If the house could be parked in this general location, time could be gained to further secure it physically as well as financially. in addition to saving an architectural treasure, its potential as a symbol of a community working collectively to resolve an issue would be invaluable. Could this lead to future village goodwill as well as creative, constructive, communal planning for the future? Probably not. But how can we not afford to try? Thank you very much. And, yeah.
I was going to thank you, Mr. Taylor, for your comments. I know you've asked the question before, why couldn't it be moved to the corner of Main and Maple, which is publicly owned property? And I fear the answer is that it's even far more complicated than what's currently on the table, given that now, once it was there, you first of all, you have the whole issue of using public property for it rather than private property. Number two, you have the issue of actually maintaining it as a historic building as opposed to whatever it would be in that spot, I'm not quite sure. And the long-term public obligation to deal with it in a public way would be, I think, far more complicated than anything we're currently talking about. And while an intriguing concept, it not only runs counter to the economic analysis we just heard, but also, I think, the time simply does not permit that extensive conversation.
Yeah, I understand that, and I would suggest...
I don't know if it would work as a police station either.
Pardon?
I don't know if it would work as a police station.
Oh, no, I would suggest it be used as a place for community gatherings, brainstorming, a place where oral histories could be given. And just if it were not used, but just the structure maintained, that would be of significance in itself until some future time. I would also suggest kind of a disappointment that government can't be flexible and dynamic enough to take on the task like this. You mentioned the complication, you mentioned the difficulty in doing it, but I would hope that there would be a time when we could tackle those difficult plans rather than keep losing things.
No one's given up yet.
Pardon?
I said, no one's given up yet. And
well, I appreciate, yeah, I appreciate that.
I think there's been a fair amount of government support for trying to see if there is a acceptable solution that will work.
Right.
Because I think the community does view it as valuable. There's many different facets of that. The local government has to step up, private individuals need to step up, and probably most importantly, the community needs to step up.
Yeah, I understand.
Government can't solve all problems.
No, and if all else fails and the house is demolished, I have a plan for that. So I'll present that if indeed the house is demolished. Thank you.
There's a lot of people that would not like to hear what that plan is.
It's not bad.
I think it's the preface that people dislike. Thank you for your comments. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Kathy Nybel. I live at 5253 Blodgett, and I'm fortunate enough to say I've lived here since 1973, and I hope many more years. I'm bringing you tonight the words from a lady named Mrs. Nora Black, who lives at 735 Maple. She's unable to attend the meeting because of the severe cold weather, and she asked me to read her words to you. Mrs. Black has lived on Maple Avenue for 60 years. She says, I have many happy memories of the Edwards house, as you call it, but to us and my family, it was always called the Tuttle house. My son John Black married Wanda Tuttle, who grew up in that house, and they had a beautiful garden wedding in the backyard. The reception was held at the house because this big house was meant for entertaining. I attended many family events at the house, baby showers, wedding showers, holidays, picnics, and even attended the Tuttle's 50th wedding anniversary party. Mr. Tuttle held many leadership positions at the First Baptist Church and often held church meetings there, such as a missionary group and a boys club. Since her daughter is a Tuttle, Mrs. Black keeps in touch with the members of the Tuttle family regularly. They all hope that the house will be allowed to move down the street and be a family home once again. Children would just love to play on the beautiful staircase. A new family and a new location would bring life back to the Tuttle house or Edwards house. It does not deserve to end up as a pile of rubble. It is too beautiful for that. She remembers that there were always trees along Maple Avenue, big ones and little ones. The trees were always changing. One goes down and another one gets planted. The village was always good about that, she said. So I asked her, because I wanted to be short, what would you like to say to the mayor and council if you could come here tonight? She said, Mrs. Black said she thought about it very seriously. I am very anxious to have the house at 942 Maple saved. I would be very happy to have the house next door to me if it is moved. So please allow this house to be moved. Sincerely, Mrs. Nora Black. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nigel.
You're welcome.
Other questions or comments of a general nature from members of the audience? Good evening.
Greetings from council members from planet Jordan. I may seem like I'm from another planet at times, but so I live in Downers Grove, 300 Burlington Avenue. Little background on me, I was a musician growing up in Clyde Estates, or close to there, when I was in the 70s and 80s, and then I got my physics degree in 87, and I started some economics research back then. Then I went back into concert security and wound up being the manpower coordinator for the largest security and crowd management company in the Midwest for a while. Then I went back to school, got my teaching certificate, and now I tutor physics, math, and problem solving, mostly in Hinsdale. But I've continued my economics research and have started various organizations. We've started a new thing called Hands in the Earth, because I consider myself a 21st century economist at this point, and my views would be perhaps drastically different from people that study econometrics. I understand econometrics, and I have friends in economics, and they don't believe Heisenberg applies to economics. Heisenberg basically said in physics that you cannot have an experiment, you can't be involved in an experiment and then be able to be empirically specific about the results. So therefore, global warming, we can't be exactly certain of our effects on these things. We can't measure these effects because we are part of the experiment. We can, however, draw conclusions. Same things with economics. We don't really know how it works. People can come up with theories. We know it's not working. So me as a 21st century economist, and all the years of research that I've been into, what my conclusions are now, I predicted and published stuff in 2006 about the collapse of the U.S. economy that I thought was imminent, and some reasons for that. And to me, it's all coming way too true. So I could get fairly theoretical and look at some of the things that are really happening in this country. So I know we don't want to get too theoretical. So I won't read all my comments. I will, however, submit them, and I'll send them to you guys to consider.
Well, I feel like I should apply for some kind of credits for the education I received tonight already.
Right. Yeah. Speaking of which, I would like to.
Is it transferable to a university?
Well, there's an issue too, as far as what. You guys know.
It's bearing upon the village of Downers Grove, if we can ask that one.
Okay. So let's see, back to, things that relate to what's going on here. First, of course, I would like to not see sidewalks in Clyde Estates, and among the proposals that I've sent you guys, and we're trying to create for Hands in the Earth, are things like that. If you're worried about stormwater retention, then the idea that I've put forth as my hope as an economist in order to help solve the United States economic problems is to see communities, suburban communities, convert completely to integrated cooperative farming systems. These savings in terms of resource, pollution, water, soil, enormous fuel, and then you get into productivity. you start to retain, you start to manage your stormwater much better, infinitely better virtually. It's a whole system change. You know, if you could get yourself if you could save $1 million, it'd be the same as getting $1 million raise. It's actually better because you don't have to go someplace to do it. So the proposal that I've sent regarding getting the village to think about actionable collaboration with me or somebody else to convert any unused parcels of land, asphalt or other, into food production and other forms of regenerative infrastructure. In Clyde Estates, that'd be a great neighborhood if you all were interested in getting involved in that kind of an experiment, where you go to gardens, you go to prairie grasses, you bring in an arborist. Our team that we are going to put together will be an arborist, soil conservationist, water conservationist, horticulturist, master gardener, carpenter, we'll document the whole process. We're going to do an experiment. We'd love to do it with Downers Grove, or some small communities in Downers Grove, big communities. Looks like we might have some small parcels to work on. Me personally, this is the only way to save the United States economy. If we keep putting it off, we could talk about economics, but our economy over thousands of years, boom, getting up into this century, money is how we measure our gross national product. Now, what's really weird about this is that...
Mr. Jordan, if I may, before you leave the topic, because that's actually something that has been mentioned a few times. I think Commissioner Rankin's brought it up, about expanding the use of community gardens throughout the community. So on that, I will simply say, stay tuned. There may be more to come on that.
Okay, cool.
And again, if we can keep it focused in Downers Grove.
Okay.
I know great thoughts cannot be contained by the walls of this building, but also just in the interest of time and others who may speak.
Okay, just one final note on the money thing versus, we should be looking at value that we're creating rather than money, because money we can just inflate and have the Fed print dollars and goes, we all know most of us know if this whole bank street economy is just going crazy. And so if we just if you increase value, you increase prices, are you increasing value? Most of the time, not. But then, so let's see, so where was I? And other things, like if the doctor students are still here, I would like to talk to them because the approach of getting communities into this sort of a local farming thing is not just simply about economics, it's about public health. It's about slowing the degradation of social structures. Why allow these kids? Is there a growth in the number of child cancers? Is it there? If you look at what's going on with our food system, you'll understand that most of the food, I shouldn't say most, but some growing percentage.
Unless we have epidemiologists in the room, we're not going to go down that path.
Okay, so some growing percentage, I could prove this easily, and there are references, that a growing percentage of what you buy at the grocery store is toxic to you. That they use ethylene to ripen apples and sometimes tomatoes. And so when you eat these non-organic apples, many of them, you can't really wash that ethylene off. I would suggest that you actually cut the skin off. But anyway, so the whole paradigm, it is time.
And again, I think that you may want to hold some of your comments for when that topic comes back up, which I'm pretty sure it will. Well, that's community gardens. I want to go whole hog.
Well, I'll try to produce a film and bring it in here and show. I had some other remarks. Maybe I guess it's too late now. I was going to talk about the lack of veracity.
There's always the next meeting.
There is no veracity. The last point on the macroeconomy and how it's distorting our reality, but ultimately that we could grab hold of this and turn our reality in the right direction. There is no veracity in all the networks, none of the political parties, not one of these sources. I mean, you can raise your hand and if you think that I'm not telling you the truth, not one of these sources, not even PBS, is able to give you the whole truth of anything that really matters. Obviously no political party, but none of the news sources. So these things there's no discussion about economics. There's There's no discussion about the details that are going on with climate change. And meteorologists know what it is. They know a lot about it, and this affects us all. So, here, Downers Grove.
Thank you.
Go big, go way green. I will send you this, I will send you more.
We'll look for the written.
And I'll be back.
I'm sure you will. Good to see you again.
Okay, you all take care.
Hopefully it'll be a little warmer then. But thank you. I know there's some other people behind you that also want to speak. Appreciate it.
Come up as a team.
There's efficiency right there. Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Jim Kruzanowski, and this is Robin Kruzanowski, my wife. 23-year residence, 853 Maple Avenue in Downers Grove. And if that doesn't establish my credibility, I have 2 degrees in economics and an advanced degree from University of Chicago. So I agree with that guy.
I found that to be a trend amongst people who went to USC, but that's...
You see, 23-year resident, first time I'm up here addressing the council. I'm a longtime listener, long-time caller. No, wait a minute. First time caller, long-time listener.
Long-time fan, first-time caller.
That's right. We moved to Downers Grove 23 years ago specifically because we wanted to live in a Victorian house in a historic neighborhood. That was the driving force. And we were priced out of Hinsdale and LaGrange, so we came to Downers Grove for the very first time and fell in love with Maple Avenue, specifically because our house wasn't an island. Our house was part of a broader street with many, many historic homes on it. We've always come to believe that historic preservation is important to the village council. There's a honorary historic district, signs up and down Maple Avenue. There's some by Prince Pond. We created an ordinance, or the village council created an ordinance in 2007 because they were fearful of the housing. It was the height of the housing bubble. Houses were being torn down. And that ordinance was created specifically with keeping old, beautiful homes from being torn down, right? Preserving the character of Maple Avenue and other parts of the village. And there was just a recent survey of what homes on Maple Avenue are historic and contributing to the character of the village. Right? Paid for, I assume, out of public dollars, unless someone did it privately, but I assume it was public dollars.
The survey cost $25,000. I believe $15,000 of that was paid for through a federal grant, if I remember correctly.
Big government, all right, I like it. So there was a vote on the condo, and putting up the condo, and I think from listening and reading the debate that everyone was in agreement that they wish they could save the Edwards house. But the developer had crossed every T, dotted every I, was in complete compliance with the special zoning use permit, and there's nothing we could do, our hands are tied, but boy, I wish we could have saved that Edwards house. And then the white knight rides in, and he's willing to buy this house if the move is subsidized in some part over to his property on Maple Avenue. Of course, I'm talking about John Tillotson. And $140,000 or thereabouts of the fees that the developer would pay, and that's what I come to understand, I think it's a small price for preserving the historic character of Downers Grove by preserving the historic character of Maple Avenue and keeping that Edwards house within the cluster of Victorian homes on Maple is precisely that. So I hope that I'm right when I think that we want to preserve the historic character of Maple and thus Downers Grove. I know I'll be thinking about that come the upcoming elections. For sure, for me. I don't speak for everybody, but it's going to be a litmus test for me. Anything you want to add?
I agree. I only went to U of I in Northern, but...
Well, thank you for your comments. I mean, I went to U of I and I got a poli-sci degree. There's only 2 things you can do with a poli-sci degree. One is teach poli-sci, and the other one's go to law school.
Or move back in with your parents, so it's another...
Well, yeah, that's the third option. That's the third option. So, and then, of course, Commissioner Durkin here, being the banker, he's the one that likes all the car dealerships next to one another, so when he's on his way to the Lamborghini dealership, he wants to pick up the Bentley, it's very convenient.
I'm the head teller, so
Good evening, sir, welcome.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Dennis O'Brien. I live at 804 60th Place here in Downers Grove. I'd like to voice my dissent for this plan to put in sidewalks at Clyde Estates. I've only been a resident for 4 or 5 years. When my wife and I decided to buy our house, we never gave the thought that there were no sidewalks. When I look at the foot traffic that exists on my street, doesn't amount to 2 dozen people. They recently put some sidewalks over in Clyde on the rear end of my property, and in the 6 months that it's been there, the only person that uses it is the postman. So that has a foot traffic probably of 3 or 4 people in a day. And for us to be spending that kind of money, or this kind of money, putting in these sidewalks when people in the area do not want them, just doesn't make any sense to me. And it certainly didn't deter my wife or I from buying in the area, which is the point I really want to make. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, appreciate your comments, thank you for coming down here today. Other questions or comments from members of the audience of a general nature, general questions or comments? All right, terrific. Well, thank you for everyone sharing their views with us. We appreciate, we try to be inclusive. We appreciate you engaging your elected officials. That brings us to item 5, which is reserved for council member reports. This is an opportunity for members of the village council to share with one another or with the community various goings-on or other items of interest. I'll start with Commissioner Jose tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to take an opportunity to wish my wife a happy birthday. Hopefully she's watching whatever the heck she wants on TV tonight while I'm here.
Not watching this?
Only if she's streaming it on the internet. Don't have Comcast. But anyway, that's all I have. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Rankin?
I'd like to remind everyone that the Grove Foundation is having their Passport to Dining next Thursday. There's a day off school on Friday, so it's a perfect opportunity to sample some of the food in downtown Downers Grove. It's $25. You can get tickets at a variety of places in downtown Downers Grove, and the information is on their website, www.thegrovefoundation.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Durkin?
I have no report.
Commissioner Neustadt?
I have no report today.
Thank you. Just very quickly, I will remind everyone that the new Chamber of Commerce 630, which is the merger of the chambers of Downers Grove and Woodridge, is holding its Masquerade Ball this Saturday, February 21st from 6 to 11. Should be an interesting event, and one of the first big ones by the combined chamber. So those who are interested in attending can get information at, the website is still under, but if you go to the old one, which is downersgrove.org, it'll relocate you to the Chamber 630 website where you can find more information out about that event. And I just want to congratulate the Education Foundation of District 58 on a very successful event this past weekend. I think just about everybody here was there. And Commissioner Neustadt's defensive skills against the Harlem Wizards were in great display that day. I notice his ears are still red from the fiddling with them, but you'll just have to watch the tape for that. Great event, huge turnout, and really want to thank the community for coming out and supporting the Education Foundation of District 58, because as we can see from the speakers we had here tonight, education is extremely important. And glad to see that our community steps up and supports it, so I want to appreciate everyone for that and all the volunteers who made it possible. With that, we move on to item 6, public hearings. We do have a public hearing tonight, so we'll get right to that. This public hearing will please come to order. This public hearing has been called by the Village Council to consider a proposed First Amendment to an annexation agreement for the property located at 5850 Janes Avenue. Notice of this hearing was published in the Downers Grove Suburban Life on January 28, 2015. I would like to summarize the procedures which we will follow for tonight's public hearing. First, I will ask the village manager, David Fieldman, to summarize the amendment to the annexation agreement and identify the property involved. Next, I will ask any representatives of the owner of the property who may be present this evening to make a brief presentation, if desired, regarding the amendment to the annexation agreement or the property involved. Next, the village council will thereafter have an opportunity to ask questions or make comments. followed by members of the public, who will then also have an opportunity to ask a question or make a comment regarding the amendment. Statements will be presented for the record, either in written or oral form, and any petitions or other documents or information relevant to this public hearing may be submitted at that time. Thereafter, we will adjourn the hearing. Please note that at this hearing, witnesses will not be sworn, and a verbatim written transcript of the statements or testimony given at the hearing will not be prepared. However, as always, a recording of the proceedings will be made on village equipment and retained until minutes of the hearing have been prepared or approved by the village council. So pursuant to those procedures, which may be longer than the actual hearing itself, I will be beginning by asking Manager Fieldman to please summarize the item.
I will ask our planning manager, Stan Popovich, to do so. He holds a master's degree in urban planning from the University of Ohio State and a bachelor's degree from Purdue. Stan.
Good evening.
That sounds like a college football. These schools all get money from us?
Good evening. I feel this
Starting forward, standing at 5'7".
I feel this is my Monday Night Football intro. So thank you, Mayor and Council. The agenda item tonight before you is a public hearing for your annexation agreement at 5850 Janes Avenue. The property, Janes Avenue, here is at the western side of Downers Grove and unincorporated Downers Grove. If we see the map here where I zoom in, the area in green is the subject property. The village is the colored-in area. The white area to the top and to the right of the dotted line is unincorporated Downers Grove, and then to the bottom and to the left of the dotted line is Woodridge, our boundary line agreement with Woodridge. So the site is currently unincorporated. Here's an aerial of the site showing the subject property. As you can see, 59th Street here is not connected to either from the west to the east to Janes Avenue. Janes is on the east side of this picture here on the right side. In 2014, in May of last year, council approved a subdivision plat for five properties here. Additionally, what we had approved was to connect 59th Street to Janes and 59th Street from the west to the east here. The intersection design included intersection design and a barrier, which is shown here in yellow. The highway commissioner was concerned about cut-through traffic and traffic going through this area. And then also they were going to construct a sidewalk, the petitioner was. Subsequently, the Lisle Township Highway Commissioner refused to sign the plat based on the connection. So what the petitioner has explored various options with Village of Woodridge to annex a lot to get them into Woodridge to build the connection, to putting in the barricade, to no avail. The Highway Commissioner didn't want to sign the plat. So they've come back to us to amend the annexation agreement. What the Highway Commissioner and the village has agreed to do is to have the sidewalk connect on the north side of 59th Street to Janes Avenue, not connect the road at this point, leave the road where it ends as it is, and basically have no connection there, just to create the 59th Street, or I'm sorry, Janes Avenue north to south, the road there that's there existing. In lieu of that, the developer is going to provide the village with a $70,000 cash contribution, so the village, if we were to ever annex the property, could construct the connection. The developer has provided engineering drawings in the packet that shows the connection. In essence, the blue lines here on the map would show the location of the connected road, and then the aqua blue is a dry well that was proposed to provide for stormwater in the event we would construct that. So to summarize here, the May 14 agreement had a 59th Street connection. Highway Commissioner declined to sign the plat. As revised, there's no connection but a cash in lieu payment for the village to put in the street if and when we would ever annex, and there are no other changes to the agreement. All the other conditions will remain in the agreement as written. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you at this time.
Thank you for the presentation. I assume we have no presentation from the property owner. Thank you. Just checking. Any questions or comments from members of the Village Council? Any questions or comments from members of the audience? The only thing in that, I guess we always have the final questions or comments from the Village Council. The $70,000 cash in lieu payment was obviously something that we were not anticipating the last time this issue was before us.
That's correct.
Because the street would have been
built.
So this is something that we hadn't anticipated previously.
That's correct.
Any other questions or comments? With that, I will then adjourn this public hearing. Thank you. Very good. Well, that brings us to item 7, our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
Any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to any of the items on tonight's consent agenda? Questions or comments from members of the Village Council? Commissioner Durkin?
Yeah, Mayor, thank you. I just want to point out that Resolution 2015-6088 is actually a resolution regarding bond reimbursement pursuant to the long-range plan and the fiscal year 15 budget. The village will be issuing bonds to pay for needed improvements to the water system. The 2015 bond issuance will total $5 million, which will be used for the water main replacements and other water system improvements. The debt service payments on these bonds will be made using the revenues from the water rates themselves. Bond issuance is consistent with the 2010 water rate study, long-range financial plan, and the fiscal year 15 budget. I just wanted to point that out in light of the fact that we do have this AAA rating. I think it's imperative that we continue to do what we can so we can maintain that rating. And I just wanted to point that out since it's something we're not going to be openly discussing, considering it's under the consent agenda. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments from members of the council? Have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Neustadt?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. The consent agenda is approved unanimously. It brings us to our active agenda, item 8. We have several items, one item, excuse me, on the active agenda tonight. Item 8A is an apple. Do I have a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing a First Amendment to annexation agreement with Greenscape Homes LLC?
So moved. Second.
Are there any questions or comments from any members of the audience on this item? Questions or comments from the members of the Village Council? Hearing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Neustadt?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. That matter passes unanimously, and it brings us to the end of our active agenda and to our first reading agenda, or workshop agenda, which is item 9. This is an opportunity for items to be introduced for discussion and presentation purposes only, and action at a future date, most likely. We have several items on our workshop or first reading agenda tonight. Tradition dictates that we ask our village staff to introduce these items for discussion. So with that, I will turn this portion of the meeting back over to Village Manager David Fieldman for an introduction of each of these items.
And I will turn it back over to Stan Popovich to talk about the first two items related to an amendment to the property and the 300 block of Ogden Avenue.
Have you picked up any additional degrees since we last saw you?
Mayor, you actually stole my joke, but I appreciate it. And no, I have not obtained any online degrees in the last 10 minutes, but thank you very much for asking.
Welcome back.
It's nice to see you again. I'll be speaking of the first two items tonight, rezoning and a plan unit development amendment for the Fresh Time development, generally known at 305-307 and 325 Ogden Avenue. Properties in the northeast corner of Downers Grove, shown here. Here's the larger zoning map, and if I zoom into, this is Ogden and Fairview on the left side of the image, and then Ogden and Florence. This is an image from last year showing the existing site that was there. In 2014, the petitioner before you obtained approval for a plan development, a rezoning for a couple of properties from a residential zoning to a B3 zoning, a special use for a drive-through and a plat of subdivision. This was the site plan that was approved in 2014. Those were all the ordinances and resolutions that were approved. The new zoning ordinance, which became effective in June 2014, requires that any plan development amendment for any major modifications to a previously approved plan development. Major amendments include changes to permitted setbacks, a more than a 5% increase in building coverage, a reduction in green space, or an increase in building height, and there's a few more as well. This new zoning ordinance requires that any time a planned unit development is proposed moving forward or an amendment, that a rezoning take place. So the zoning map, if approved tonight, would read B3/PUD. In the past, the zoning, in essence, for a PD just remained the same, but in this case, we'll have a specific designation on the zoning map that notes as a PUD, so anybody really looking can find that easily. So those are the requirements based on the new zoning ordinance and why we're back in front of you and why the petitioner's back in front of you this evening requesting the rezoning and the planned unit development. So if we look at the plan that was approved in 2014, there were two lots. Lot 1 here shown on the left-hand side was the larger Fresh Time lot, and then Lot 2 was an outlot with
approximately a 4,500 square foot building. And then if we go into the next picture here, you can see the two buildings here, the Fresh Time building, which is currently under construction, are pretty good, moving along pretty well, and then the smaller building on Lot 2. There was a drive-through lane, which is shown here on the right-hand side in the sort of the lighter yellow, and the building was set back approximately 26.4 feet from the east property line along Florence Avenue there. The drive-through lane had a flow circulation from south to north and then exiting out that way there. There were 4 access points that were approved, 2 on Ogden, 1 on Fairview, which is on the lower left side of the screen, 1 on Florence, which is in the lower right-hand screen. The Ogden Avenue is on the top of the screen here. The right-hand, or the easternmost exit point, was a right-in, right-out only. That was based on some IDOT discussions with us and the petitioner. So the current proposal is to, in essence, this is the current plan as proposed. The current plan is really all about this outbuilding here. The petitioner is requesting to expand the building so that it's approximately 5,360 square feet, where previously it was 4,500 square feet. The setback would move to 15.5 feet. This is the deviation from the standard requirement of 25 feet off of a front property line. The petitioner would remove the drive-through lane that was along the east side here between Florence and the building, and in its place would provide a few of the extra parking spaces here. Just to put a hammerhead on the front parking lot along Ogden Avenue, and then add a couple additional parking spaces, more than a couple, probably a few, to south of the building there. So that's why we're here tonight in terms of the request before you tonight for the planned unit development. It's pretty much because of the setback issue here off of Florence Avenue. So if we look at these side by side, the 2014 approval is on your left-hand side here of the image, and then your 2015 proposal is on your right-hand side. As you can see, the green space, when you actually add it up, is pretty much a wash. I think they're adding about 5 square feet of green space, which meets the requirements of a PUD. And then the building is slightly closer to Florence Avenue. The building is closer to Florence, as there are options to move it closer or expand it further south, but then that contracts the parking lot a little bit, and then it does become a little closer to residential units down south of the development. In this case, directly across the street is the auto zone. I think there's an LA Tan in that little strip center there as well. So in essence, this is the significant change that's under consideration tonight. That's primarily the reason driving the petition this evening. In addition to those things, there are 4 access points, so everyday vehicles can come in and out. There was some concern about tractor-trailer traffic at the last council meeting, and the petitioner actually had internally decided that this was their new traffic pattern for tractor-trailers, for the large tractor-trailers, was to eliminate any access for tractor-trailers off of Fairview Avenue. Primarily, they would come in off of the Ogden Avenue entrances, back into the loading dock, which is in this location here, and then exit either back out onto Ogden Avenue or then Florence north directly to Ogden Avenue. There are no turn provisions via signs. It says local traffic only, turning right onto Florence. So in essence, no tractor trailers would be able to turn right. They would be in violation of the no turn. And then also any delivery trucks, box trucks could not turn right to go through local traffic as well. All access points would be available to the everyday user of the property, whether that's a typical pickup truck or a vehicle or a car. But tractor trailers specifically would be limited here. We just wanted to formalize that within the agreement. The petitioner had agreed to do that when they came back into that, and when they were here for earlier approvals, but for whatever reason, that formalization in the ordinance didn't make it there. But again, really the primary reason that they're before you tonight is because of this slight change in the building to increase the building size. The rezoning standards for rezoning in section 12.030.I of the zoning ordinance have been met, as well as the plan unit development amendment standards in section 12.040.C.6 have been met as well. If there's any questions at this time, I'd be happy to answer those for the mayor and council.
Thank you for the presentation. We'll start if there are any questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to this item, which is really a modification of something that we've seen before. Any questions or comments? Questions or comments from the council?
I do.
Go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, I didn't see it in here, and maybe I missed it. Why is it that they want to expand this building by 500 square feet?
The user is changing, so they have a different user with a different footprint requirement.
Do we know who the user is, or is that something that they're not?
The petitioner's here this evening, if you'd like to ask that question to them.
I don't know if they're willing to tell us.
Yeah.
You have to come before
Sure,
us.
you can come to the podium, please. Welcome, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it, thank you.
Louis Schreiber, Sherwood Development Group. To answer your question is, we've got a vested interest in Fresh Time Farmers Market. It is a very tight parking lot, while it's per code and everything else, but as more and more of these Fresh Times are opening, their intensity with parking has come to the forefront. With that said, we've considered the drive-through traffic here, and we were actually going after a Pete's, to relocate here, so I thought that was kind of interesting and accurate.
You're going to cause a storefront vacancy?
Well, that's our solution. No, so the increase of the 500 square feet is we're going to put a much less intense retail use on this spot, and then keep 17 to 1,800 square feet for a small sandwich shop or something like that, to create an overall better flow internally for the parking lot and parking and everything else like that. So it's a vested interest in our long-term success with Fresh Time.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Could we go back briefly to the diagram that shows the ingress and egress? Thank you. I appreciate the correction or the confirmation of the egress with respect to the access point on Florence, and making sure that it's clear that there should be no truck traffic turning right and going south down Florence. That's very important, I know, the neighborhood. But likewise, particularly because of the narrowness of the street and the proximity to neighborhoods, it was very important in the neighborhood last time and continues to be, particularly now that the development is taking shape. People can see it's not a two-dimensional drawing anymore, it's now a three-dimensional reality. The ingress and egress point on Fairview. And I know that the desire is not to have any truck traffic either coming in or going out of that exit. The local traffic only sign is, I know, one that is intended to keep any kind of trucks going in and out of there. But given that intersection right there, I think even now, visualizing it as the construction is taking place, I think it's even more important that we step up the game in terms of making sure that we don't have trucks coming in and out of that Fairview Avenue, because anyone that's been down there with the traffic across the street in the residential area, the fact that Fairview Avenue narrows and doesn't widen until you get a little bit north of there, that can be a real challenging spot, and no one in the right mind should be trying to get any sizable truck in and out of there. I don't think anybody would want that. So putting in something more than local traffic only, I think, is something that we really ought to pursue. It was something that was on my mind last time, but now having seen the project come together, having talked with the neighborhood more, I think no trucks would be fine, given that there's plenty of other ingress and egress points. I think that would go a long way towards alleviating or avoiding some serious traffic issues right there. And I don't need a traffic study to know that that could be a problem. I don't think anybody would dispute that. So as long as we're revisiting this, that's something that I would like to see. And since it's not something that looks like it would be any detrimental impact upon the project or the traffic flow for the development, I think as a village, that's something that I would like to see.
Can I ask for a point of clarification?
You absolutely can.
What is it, how do you define a truck? Are you talking about a local bread delivery, or are you talking about a semi-tractor trailer?
Well, I think that if we say no trucks, we can talk about how the signage would work, but I think anything other than anything bigger than the Suburban.
Okay, yeah.
So you're saying no in or out of that exit? Or you're just saying no
Exit.
out?
I'm sorry, primarily egress.
Right.
Although, again, I don't know why we would want to enter there.
Well, if they were coming down Fairview, they might want to just turn right and go.
I suppose that'd be fine, but I'm more concerned about the egress. Especially since there's other exit points that are already defined as the preferred exit points.
But what they've agreed to is not that. It's smaller trucks can leave there, right? Is that what I understand?
As currently proposed, yes.
Okay.
But because
But the petitioner's here to speak of that.
Sure, I understand that. I'm just
I'm just saying that
understanding.
with the passage of time and seeing how the development is played out and having more input from the neighborhood as they've seen this, And driving through there, even during the construction zone, because that's the other thing we've had the benefit of seeing how construction has impacted this area, and one can easily envision how large trucks exiting from that point on Fairview could affect traffic there. I think it's one thing to think of it conceptually, it's another one to see it in reality. And again, I'm not proposing a solution as I sit here right now, but I would like to see if we can explore some greater restrictions in terms of the types of vehicles that can exit from that spot. And again, from what I'm seeing, I don't think that would have any material impact upon the traffic patterns that the petitioner is envisioning for this parcel. Not based on the diagram that I've seen. I think it's more of a signage issue. I think this is more of a village issue than it is the petitioner. But other than that, in terms of the project itself, I think that the changes that are being requested don't materially alter what we saw before, so I don't have a problem with those. Commissioner?
While we're talking about signs, first of all, the PUD change is fine with me, but I think it's on a punch list. I think Dave and I talked about this, but the actual egress straight across the street to Lake Street is something that we've heard from residents about, that perhaps a less than stellar driver might think that they can just shoot straight across to get through. There are no outlet signs already marked there on Lake Street, but I think it was a punch list item to get a nice, big, easily seen, no outlet, so that, shot straight across the street isn't going to happen. I think that would help alleviate some of the neighborhood issues. I just want to make sure that's still on the plan. Again, we're going to vote on this next week or on the 3rd. Next week?
March 3rd.
March 3rd.
It's still on there? Perfect.
It's on the construction documents.
Okay, great. That way, we know we can answer that question to the neighborhood if they ask it again. I think anytime that we have questions about where are the trucks going to go, how are they going to go, it's signs, it's hammerheads, it's horseshoes, it's pork chops, but it's also going to be a little bit of enforcement, and it's going to be up to our residents and the business owners to make sure that the users follow through with those rules. And we have a great community development department that can keep knocking on the door, and then of course the police department to affect those rules of the road. So I think that'll be an important step as this process and project goes through.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Jose?
Thank you, Mayor. In keeping with a couple of the comments that you've made, Mayor, I'm wondering, do we have any information on the timing of deliveries from these smaller size trucks that the mayor was referring to and dealing with Fairview Avenue?
I'll defer to the petitioner. So the majority, the fresh food and stuff is going to be, 6 a.m., 5:30, 6 a.m., and then there could be periodically through 2 p.m. So I think we stated 6 through 2 p.m. Correct. Deliveries.
Great. I'm asking because I know that Fairview Avenue gets pretty well backed up right around the time school begins. There's a school not far south of there. And traffic gets pretty heavy during the drop-off and pickup time. So it'd be great if we could schedule around that to a certain extent.
Right. And Fresh Time is aware of this concern, and they have been very open to, actively going to enforce the deliveries as well. Timing and especially access, ingress and egress of it as well. So that the citizens have spoke up quite loudly to us, you guys, and Fresh Time. And Fresh Time takes this very serious too, because that's their customer.
Very good.
That's appreciated.
Thanks, Mayor.
One last thing. I know in previous life we had issues with idling trucks. Can we make sure that there's no idling trucks that are going to be sitting there in case the docks are full?
If you so direct that to be an operational condition of the PUD, then that would be included.
I think that's, if we're concerned about trucks in that vicinity or whatever, I can see that easily being a stacking area, thank you, Mayor, for trucks waiting to get in and out of the docks. I know we had issues in my previous life with Jewel, and then I've noticed that we have signs up at our Jewels as well, so I don't know if that was a corporate thing I was taking on. It's just a thought that I had, that's all. Not to complicate the whole scenario, because we appreciate you coming into our town.
Maybe we can take it offline, see whether that's something that can be done within reason.
Yeah. Marge is waiting.
I know, just making sure that everybody's done up here. Since Commissioner Olson joined us, welcome, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Safe travels. Any comments on this before I go back to the public?
None from me, thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Any follow-up questions from the public? Good evening.
Hi, Marge Earl, 4720 Florence Avenue. I live not too far from this, and we're excited to see it coming in, so thank you very much. I don't have any problems with the amendment to the PUD agreement, though I do have a question, and since you brought it up here, I wouldn't have normally brought it up, but we're all talking about it, the ingress on Fairview there. The fence has recently gone up, and I have a real concern that that fence on the south side of the property line, and I'll point to it over here, right along here. This fence is really tall, and I'm afraid that it's going to block visibility for anybody who is turning in or turning out of Fresh Time, either way. So to be able to see that traffic and judge that well. I don't know if that could be changed maybe to a lower fence at some point to transition to a lower fence, or if that could be changed to an open design fence so at least people could see and judge the traffic as to whether or not they get out. Because the street does widen there, and it is a little bit difficult to see that oncoming traffic if you're turning one way or another. So thank you very much.
To address the concern, we did go out to the neighbor's house before we came to the meeting, to the adjacent neighbors, who's Gary, who's on Fairview. And what we decided to do to address the neighbor's concern was to taper the fence down from the height of the fence to go down to 0 to improve that vision triangle if the traffic's coming in and out of there, to make it a safer view.
We'll add that as a condition of approval.
Yeah, thank you, because that, again, now that we've actually seen the project start to sprout out of the ground, a lot of these things become a lot more apparent than they did when we looked at them two-dimensionally. So appreciate your working with us in that regard, and as well as working with the neighborhood. Other questions or comments? Very good. Well, thank you. Appreciate you providing that additional information. That would, the next item, please.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Mr. Popovich to also present information on a request to amend the text of our zoning ordinance.
Welcome back. Hat trick.
Hat trick, yes, 3 for 3 tonight. No additional degrees tonight. And sitting in.
Over here long enough, we might all get it.
We might, right, exactly. Tonight, there's a discussion of a proposed text amendment to the OR zoning district. The OR zoning district is an office research district. There are currently 14 properties zoned OR. 13 of them are generally located around Highland and 31st Street. The 14th is located in around the Esplanade on Wood Creek Drive. OR district is primarily a research and development district in an office-like setting. Generally, it's viewed as a Class A office space area. So if you're asking yourself what is Class A office space, it's generally the highest quality office space in the market. It's generally newer construction, top-of-the-line fixtures, top-of-the-line amenities that are provided in these Class A office spaces. They're aesthetically pleasing generally, they're generally in high visibility locations, and the rental rates are generally higher. So having Class A office space is very important to the village to attract the high-end headquarters and other type of businesses that we look to attract. The OR zoning district is primarily found in the northern portion of the village, as I've just noted. This is a little zoomed-in map here of the OR district. Those properties, the 14, are colored in. All the rest of the zoning districts are outlined. The 13 are primarily around 31st Street and Highland, and then there's the one outlier, which is over here on Wood Creek Drive. The request before us to consider a text amendment is to permit e-commerce and e-retailing from the confines of an office in the OR zoning district with a provision for a 10,000 square foot warehouse. The request would prohibit direct sales from a business site, so one person couldn't come in and actually purchase something at the business site, and then to allow pickup and delivery of items via delivery vans and trucks only. When staff looked at this, staff believes that this would create a more intense use within the office campus, potentially for more deliveries, more input, more items coming in, items coming out, and more of a manufacturing warehouse type of environment. We believe that this is counter to the Class A office space desire of the village in terms of providing a warehouse opportunity in a Class A office building. 10,000 square feet could take up anywhere from a quarter of a floor plate to a half of a floor plate in some of the Highland Landmark and those buildings around Highland and 31st Street. We believe a proliferation of warehousing uses in a building could change those Class A office spaces
into more of a warehouse or lesser desirable intentions there of the zoning district. We also believe that the comprehensive plan, that the proposal is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan identifies each of the properties in the OR zone properties as office or corporate campus. Those are the significant presence in the village. Those are right off the freeway. The OR district is. It's a maximized visibility area there. We believe that the high quality of those two, of the Highland Landmark and Esplanade, are specifically listed in the comprehensive plan to maintain those. And we're concerned about the fact that if we allow a little bit of warehousing and some e-commerce and alternate uses in those districts, that it could affect the Class A office space. And again, we believe it's inconsistent with comprehensive plan. Staff's recommendation is to maintain the existing ordinance. If the council desires us to explore a text amendment, the next steps would be for staff to draft a text amendment, move it through the Plan Commission for public hearing, and then come back before the village council for its ultimate consideration. If there's any questions at this point, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
Just a couple of notes. Much like our recent discussion on a similar text amendments issue, there is an accompanying specific request for a specific business at this location. That is not actually what's on the table. It's a request to direct staff whether or not you want to entertain a change that would allow that business to proceed. So our comments here are about the concept of amending the zoning ordinance, not a particular analysis of any particular or exact business that has been proposed. With that, we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Let me ask the council if they have any questions of staff before opening it up to the petitioner or members of the audience. Commissioner Jose.
Thank you, Mayor. Stan, we've got Class A office space that's zoned something other than OR, right?
Correct.
And it's ORM?
That's correct.
And this is a permitted use in ORM, correct?
Correct.
So the e-commerce that's contemplated could take place in there without the space limitations?
Correct.
And they wouldn't need a special use or any other permission from the village in order to do that?
I believe it's a permitted use, yes.
Okay. And a property manager or landlord would have the ability to lease or not lease to somebody based on, whether they wanted this kind of use in their building, right?
That's correct.
Thanks, Mayor.
Just to be clear, that the e-commerce activity, the answering a phone and selling and buying on the internet, is not the concern that drives the recommendation. It's the warehousing activities. So there are things that are associated with warehousing, of holding the goods on site and distributing them from that site that brought the concern of the recommendation.
And that warehousing is still permitted in an ORM district, correct?
Yes, it is. In the Esplanade area is an example of that.
Thanks. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Commissioner.
No, I'm thinking about it. I mean, those were great points, Commissioner Jose. That's interesting. And it just seems that more businesses are moving towards online and e-commerce, and I think we should be sensitive to that. So that's about all with my comments right now. Thank you.
Just one thing I want to ask, and then want to hear from the petitioner and others, is clearly we want to continue to be facilitative, particularly of different and progressive business models, and encourage that within our community. But one thing I'm also aware of is that we've been pretty successful in attracting international and national headquarters to our Class A office space. And obviously we would like to do that because of the benefits it brings to our community, including recognition, brand identity, desirability, jobs, employees who then shop at our stores, go to our restaurants and things like that.
Live in our town.
Yes.
Thank you.
They buy houses in the town too. Have we inquired of the Economic Development Corporation what their thoughts might be and how this might play into the economic development strategy for attracting and retaining corporate headquarters, which are principally in the Class A office space? And I don't know what the answer is. I'd just like to know if we can get their input on that.
No, we have not. This is the first step under our new ordinance, is to just check in with the council to see if this is something you would like us to spend time, resources, and ask that question. It would trigger a series of interactions, including Economic Development Corporation input.
All right, because, I mean, again, I know there's been some reluctance to engage in drafting ordinances and going through the plan commission process if it's a non-starter. So it's something that I'd at least like to have that input before time is spent on it, which seems to be the phrase du jour lately. Any other questions?
Yeah, I would concur with that, because this is preliminary. I mean, it's hypothetical. We haven't really done any kind of homework on this, in my opinion. Correct. It was brought up under new business item or council potential new business item, and now we're talking about it. I don't even know if there's anyone here to speak about it before us, probably, because Ken's here. It seems like it's moving along a lot faster than what we're being led to believe right here. So I would agree with the mayor that we, and if Commissioner Rankin and Jose were as well, you know, let's get the EDC. I mean, that's what they're here for.
If, again, just like I said the last time, we had a request to direct staff to be authorized to bring an amendment through. If there are any conditions under which you would like to entertain this, I would just recommend vote yes. So as opposed to actually starting the work and doing just the EDC portion, we'd prefer, if the answer is maybe, vote yes, and then we'll start the whole process and you get all the input you need to actually make a decision on a tax amendment.
Yeah, but isn't there a streamlined approach that we could do in something like this? Instead of allocating how many hours of staff time, but there's so many things that we have going on, that will be going on.
That is this process right here.
It just seems like time management could be improved, in my opinion, but that's besides the point.
Well, my question was answered, which was, we don't have EDC input. That was the narrow question that I had. Again, it's something that it could be very facilitative to expanding business in our community. I'm not saying it isn't. We just don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul, that's all. Commissioner? Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry, we kind of got off track there. We were just sort of asking questions of staff before allowing any representatives of the petitioner or members of the public to weigh in as well. But Commissioner Olson?
I do want to state on this is an item from the outset. I think what we've just heard now is additional concern about the structure of how our zoning ordinance is set up, how we've set it up. We're having, we changed this when we revised the zoning ordinance, and it might be something we want to look at, as I suggested last time when we did District 99 signs, this process of coming to the council without the full information, without EDC input, without public input, without going through that process is a concern. So, I'm looking forward to hearing from the petitioner. I appreciate hearing from staff, and I think this is hopefully will be the first step in a good process and a fair process.
Much like the fresh time development coming out of the ground has taught us about that development, having 2 or 3 of these text amendments, ask the council, should we consider it? Staff will be recommending some changes to our zoning ordinance, frankly, to go back to the old process where anybody would be free to pay the application fee, go through the plan commission, and then by the time it got here, you would have a complete set of facts, a record, input from the EDC, a whole bunch of stuff. So as we've learned, I think the old system was serving us very well.
Funny how that works sometimes. Anything from the petitioner or representatives of the petitioner? No worries. Good evening, Mr. Rathje.
No educational claims. Good evening. You don't want to hear
I think you got a few.
Oregon State is doing very well in basketball this year. Thank you. My name is Ken Rathje from Rathje Planning Services. I'm here tonight with my client David Durer, who is the CEO of Straight North and Pro Stock Hockey. I clearly understand that our request is a categorical request and not a specific approval for a specific use. But we have some experience in doing some e-retailing out of office building, and we can't help but tell you a little bit about who we are. Straight North is a website development and design business that moved their headquarters from Oak Brook to Downers Grove in 2012. They started out with 25 employees, and they now have 60. Mr. Durer and his partners have a keen passion for hockey, and they are fortunate enough to have an interesting relationship with a number of the NHL teams. Between their expertise in internet marketing and their love of hockey, they soon found themselves in a business opportunity where NHL hockey teams have an exceptional amount of brand-new, unused equipment that they need to sell. Rather than it falling off the back of a truck, the NHL teams wanted to have a legitimate means to sell equipment that they bought and should get their resources back from. They currently are purchasing equipment from more than half the NHL teams. And their expertise launched them in the sale of professional equipment to consumers. Mr. Durer discovered that the OR zoning district regulations do not provide for any type of retail sales, no matter how cleanly maintained and how carefully regulated. And he contacted me in December of this year. I had a preliminary conversation with staff about the situation, and Mr. Durer then wrote a letter to the village just after Christmas, asking the village for an opportunity to have the council permit us to have a text amendment entertained, which would hopefully authorize e-retailing in the OR zoning district. Mr. Popovich gave us a very accurate description of what our initial language is, solely from an office building limited to 10,000 square feet of all operations. We would also suggest to prohibit any type of first-person sales, that everything would be sold via internet sales, telephone sales, or mail order sales, and there would be no direct delivery of any products except through UPS. Pickup and delivery would be from UPS-size vehicles. We structured the proposed modification based on observation of several other regulations in the village's zoning ordinance where there are limitations on the size and scale of certain businesses in certain zoning districts. In certain circumstances, and you can take a look at the material that staff provided, there's limitations of light manufacturing in the B districts, there's limitations of the size of medical and dental in the DB zoning district. There's a limitation of the size of auto repair in the B2 district. There are other ones, but in the light of the hour, I won't go into that. We feel that e-retailing is, in an office building, is not commensurate with the concept of warehousing. Nor is there warehousing when you have merchandise in a store. The design of our business is to be low, small, specialized consumer products, not a large international email business or e-retailing business where they want to deliver with drones. Our language was offered as a possible text amendment, and it's been offered in a manner which we hope is a starting point for conversation. We certainly are open to alternate language and to other potential limitations, regulations. Examination of the OR zoning district shows that all lots which are in existence in the village are fully improved with buildings. So the notion of there being any accessory buildings for warehousing or something like that is certainly not within the scope of the language that we're proposing, and we would not be looking for anything like that. I think that the term warehousing is somewhat of an unfair term for having some stockrooms areas that could work well within an office area. Mr. Durer is with me tonight, and he just wants to have an opportunity to just say a few things about his companies, which he's very proud to have brought to Downers Grove. Mr. Durer?
By all means, welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time tonight. This is the second business that I've relocated to Downers Grove. We located a company a couple years ago over to Highland Landmark. We moved that company over with about the same number of employees and grew that up to about 100 employees. This business here, Straight North, we're an internet marketing company. We build websites for companies and we market them for them online. We have customers that we serve all across the United States and Canada, and we're very, very good at communicating with search engine, helping, in essence, advance people in their digital strategies. We leased about half the floor over at the current facility that we're in. My business partner just happens to own the building, and that's one of the reasons we located over to it. We brainstormed an idea called Pro Stock Hockey just about 9 months ago, and it took us about 90 days from kind of idea conception to launch. And now, in a very short period of time, we find ourselves in a very interesting position that we've become the largest internet reseller of authentic NHL hockey equipment. Never in our wildest dreams did we think this little idea would take off the way that it did, and we find ourselves in this very unique situation where we're finding great success in kind of a very niche idea. We had about half the floor of the building that was not leased. We bought our first set of inventory, and my business partner says, well, why don't we just incubate this thing over here? In the process of doing that, we then bought a little more inventory, and then we decided it wouldn't be great for Straight North to have some signage on our building. And so we petitioned to have a sign. We have a beautiful sign. I don't know if any of you have seen it up on our building there. And in the process of doing that, the question was asked, what's this Pro Stock Hockey business? And so we described what it was and found out that we're not permitted to operate that type of an e-commerce business in the space that we're operating. So I apologize for putting anybody in a position of having to say, wow, you guys shouldn't be doing what you're doing in the space in which you're doing, but we're there and we're doing it, and we did not realize it. So I apologize for that. We like Downers Grove. We'd like to stay where we're at. We think our space works perfectly for the business that we're in, which is e-commerce. It's not a retail location. And my understanding from Ken is your zoning is either retail or anything that's not retail. And we're clearly not retail, but we're kind of being defined as retail. We don't have customers come in. Matter of fact, if you go to our website, prostockhockey.com, it says right there, do not come to our office. There are no pickups. You cannot come in and go shopping. We're not set up as a retail location. If you came into our office, and I invite anybody to come in and see it, it's an enormous amount of, hockey sticks and gloves and pants, and we're not set up for people to come and go, but we are set up for FedEx to haul some boxes out every night of sticks and gloves for people who order anywhere from the United States and Canada, and we made our first shipment to Hong Kong, believe it or not, the other day. And so, is it the perfect situation for what we do? Probably not, but we own the building, we have the space works absolutely perfect. We have 60 employees on the Straight North side that support the Pro Stock Hockey side, which now is building a whole employee base of its own, and to separate those, I think at this point is unlikely for us. We'd have to make a whole new space decision as to where, what do we do with these companies now, because they're kind of joined together. We don't want to leave the space that we're in, and we just ask for your consideration as you evaluate whether this type of a company, the type of business that we're operating, can work well within either the amendment that we're asking for and remain within the village and in the space that we're in. So, but I appreciate your consideration and appreciate your time tonight.
Well, thank you for that additional information and background, Mr. Dewar. Obviously, we're excited and encouraged that you chose to come to Downers Grove in the first place, and you're having that problem of having not enough space to do what you want to do. That's always that's like the business that doesn't have enough parking. It's a good problem to have. Yeah. But that being said, I think we're just obviously this is something that has a more broad impact than just your business, which we clearly applaud your innovation, creativity, and that's the kind of thing we want to facilitate. I just simply had the question of I want to make sure that since we do spend a lot of time and money investing on attracting businesses and headquarters to our Class A office space, I wouldn't want to do anything that inadvertently had some other kind of impact. So I think that there's some questions that were asked that we just want to make sure that we have the benefit of additional information. But certainly, we're always open to new and creative ideas. We're not quite as hip and ahead of the curve as the private sector is, but we try to facilitate as much as we can. So thank you for providing that additional background for us. Thank you. Any questions of staff for Mr. Dewar, the petitioner, before I open it up to the public for any questions or comments? Commissioner?
I think we're pretty hip, actually, and I think our staff can work with the petitioner on this one to come up with some creative ways to limit the exposure. Hearing that we're going to potentially go back to the old system is kind of a game changer for me. I want to make sure that we have the information that people are interested in so we can make the right decision. I have a very important question for you, though. One of the things I do up here that we have these computers now is I check out websites of companies, and I just found a spot on yours that's called Stench Control.
Stench control, yes.
Can you explain that to me a little bit? I'm not a hockey player. I know Manager Fieldman has a lot of this in his house probably, so.
As you can imagine.
I think I know what this is about, but I would love your.
Tonight is really the night for going off topic.
Yeah.
We're promoting colleges, why not?
Yes, I should probably list my degrees before I respond to that
You're making
question.
a requirement to speak.
Stench control, as you can imagine, NHL hockey teams, NHL equipment managers, players, they manage an enormous amount of people, laundry, and equipment. Stench control is where we sell the authentic NHL laundry bags and shower bags. So Patrick Kane, Jonathan Taves, all those folks, they have, personalized laundry bags and shower kits and all that kind of stuff. So as their stuff travels from city to city, all those items don't get lost. We acquire brand new unused ones from the teams, and then we resell them. Matter of fact, we launched these shower kits yesterday. We bought about 1,500 of them, and I think we virtually sold them all out in 2 days.
Well, I can certainly say without going through the whole process that I've learned something tonight, and I'd like to learn more. So I'm ready to go ahead and say yes to that and look forward to hearing more about this potential change to our zoning ordinance.
You guys are a St. Louis team.
Do I have a motion to appoint Commissioner Newstand as the head of the stench control?
Well, let's see, maybe Olson should do this since he's shaving his head in the spring.
Oh, yeah, you missed that.
What?
What's
the take, Dave?
Okay. Thank you very much. Obviously, you can just let think about it, and we'll follow up and give it due consideration. Obviously, again, we pride ourselves on trying to facilitate business whenever we can.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members.
Thank you. Good to see you again, Mr. Rathje. Any questions or comments from members of the audience on this item? Very good. Thank you.
We will get the information requested, and I will, as the owner of several hockey bags, look into that stench control. And that is our first reading tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, terrific. That brings us to item 10, the mayor's report. I don't believe I have anything at this time to report out. And the new business item is there. Item 11 is the manager's report. I guess the question is, do we still want to go take a look next door?
Yes.
Maybe at the end of the meeting, we'll take this out of order and convene to the committee room and talk about gateway signs.
Just want to make sure we're still prepared to do that.
Yes, we are.
All right, very good. Then we'll come back to the manager's report after we adjourn. Just so everyone watching is aware of what we're doing, like as before, we are going to adjourn this meeting when we get to the end, but we are going to then reconvene next door in the committee room to take up again the issue of proposed gateway signs for the community, take a look at what the further progress in that regard has been. So just so everyone knows, you're welcome to join us next door when we move over there, and it will be on TV.
That's correct.
That's right, there are cameras there. There are cameras everywhere. There's nowhere you can go without a camera. So then we'll skip the manager's report unless there's something else besides that. All right, we'll go right to the village attorney's report. Ms. Petrarca?
Thank you, Mayor. 2 items to present this evening. The first is an ordinance rezoning the property located at 305, 307, and 325 Ogden Avenue, and an ordinance approving a planned unit development amendment to Plan Development Number 52 to revise the outbuilding setback at 305, 307 Ogden Avenue. That will be on the next active agenda, which is March 3rd. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. That brings us to item 13, council member new business. Do any members of the village council have any items of new business they would like to raise at this point in time? Commissioner Olson flew all the way here just so he could bring this up.
No, I just wanted to say more of a report than anything. I just flew in from Arkansas and
boy, your arm's tired.
There's just an ice storm there, and a lot of challenges getting around in Arkansas today. And I just made me think about the fine job that our staff does when we have events, snow and ice around here. I know we're a little bit more prepared than they are in Arkansas, but I really do appreciate that. I know that as I was walking on the street that's covered in an inch of ice and slipping, sliding along, talked to a lot of folks who are very frustrated with the responsiveness and all the preparation. So, I think we obviously are always looking to improve, but I do have to compliment our staff on the excellent job that they do. So, just wanted to share that given my recent trip. Thanks, Mayor, and I apologize for being late. Flight was a little bit delayed.
No, that's all right. We appreciate you joining us in progress. Any other council members have any items of new business to bring up with the rest of the council at this point in time? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. And as a reminder, we are going next door to the committee room to take up gateway signs and the village manager's report. I have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
A roll call, please.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin? Aye. Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin? Aye. Mayor Tully?
Aye. We are adjourned. Over to the committee room. Thank you and good night. Reconvened into the committee room. We're here tonight for the further discussion presentation with respect to proposals for gateway signs. This is under the manager's report, so we'll turn it over to Manager Fieldman for introduction.
I'm simply going to introduce Doug Kozlowski to lead us through meeting number 2 about gateway signs. So with that, Doug.
Thank you, Dave.
Just make sure you mention my name.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We are here tonight as a follow-up discussion to the January 13th meeting regarding gateway signs. And as you may recall, the purpose of this medium priority action item is to design and construct gateway signs along major thoroughfares throughout the community. And so this evening, I'd like to begin with just a brief recap of our previous discussion, and then it'll be followed by a list of the options that have been incorporated into the designs that were suggested by council at the last meeting. And Alex Pelicano will be here after I conclude my remarks to provide us with a little bit more detail on those options. If you recall, we began by establishing characteristics for gateway signs. And we determined that gateway signs should be timeless, meaning not too much of a throwback, not too contemporary. We also felt that gateway signs should evoke Downers Grove's heritage, and above all else, be simple, beautiful, and easy to read. And so with that, we set about the business of solving this problem here. This is the current array of gateway signs in the community, and they are still out of date.
Compliance.
I like the one in the right corner.
And we're here to help create a path for their replacement. So what staff did to develop the designs that were presented at the last meeting was to look at famous and iconic places in the community, and we found some inspiration in some of the common attributes. Now, I'll draw your attention to the Main Street train station, which features the Chicago red brick. Now, the Chicago red brick also is featured along the brick streets in the community. It can also be seen on developments like the Morningside condominium development, in addition to Acadia on the Green. So it is in and of itself a strong iconic image within the community. Another strong iconic image in the community is Sears Homes. And so the Sears Homes have some attributes that are actually seen today in construction. Now, Sears Homes were actually constructed between 1908 and 1940 in the community, and staff was kind of struck by some of the common elements or elements of Sears Homes that you can find in some residential construction today. And specifically, it relates to the front porch column structure, which is basically this stone column with the obelisk feature along the top or at the top. Stone column, obelisk feature. These are Sears Homes. And here's a more recent residential construction, and you'll see that the front porch also has the obelisk feature, the stone column topped with an obelisk feature. So those are two very strong iconic elements within the community, the Chicago red brick and the obelisk column feature, which were incorporated into the proposed designs. And at our last meeting, there was some consensus regarding this particular version of the monument sign, but we heard that the smaller version needed some work. So this evening, and Alex in just a moment is going to walk us through two new alternative small monument sign designs. And here on the board, we have some of the other options that were suggested by council at the last meeting that we have incorporated into the work that you'll see this evening. So there'll be variations on font styles, justification. We'll have some text variations, the welcome to versus village of. We'll have sign face color variations, and we'll have some examples of these types of signs that actually utilize the village logo. So our goal this evening is to present these variations to you, and perhaps in the near future, once you've had an opportunity to consider them fully, we would then go ahead and develop an RFP for design services. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Alex, who's going to walk you through more details on the variations. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. You're welcome. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So this was the popular design of the large monument sign, as Doug has already mentioned. In response to the concerns over the smaller sign, we came up with two new small monument designs, and I'd like to share them with you now. So stay with the theme of the larger monument sign, and particularly the analogy of a front porch being welcoming to somebody visiting a home. We want to welcome people to Downers Grove. So this design on the left is essentially half of the larger monument design, with the base enlarged to qualify by the sign ordinance as a monument sign to 2 feet by 2 feet, and then the beam that goes across the top becomes an outrigger in this design, supporting the sign face, which has a curved top element to it, which in the last meeting was something that was deemed to be desirable as well. These are both craftsman style designs, keeping with the Sears home popularity. The design on the right is a variation on the porch design as well. It's almost an excerpt from a craftsman style front porch. The columns are made more slender. The masonry depth and height is intended to be that height of a masonry wall around a front porch. It becomes a beam again, much like the larger monument sign, and supports the same curved sign face. Both of these are intended to draw an instant correlation to the larger monument sign design, which was popular in our last presentation. While the overall width is a function of respecting the sign face, it does comply with the sign ordinance in all facets. Overall size, sign face size. The details in particular, the stone pier base or brick base, as we see, interchangeable on either design. The tapered columns above, referred to as an obelisk form, made of either actual painted wood, but more preferably out of a fiber cement composite or a PVC product that would be through color and more maintenance free. Single or double top heavy timber beam, natural or composite once again. Metal connectors, hardware, sign frame, lettering would all be of a finish that would be conducive to being out in the elements and being long lasting as well. Illuminated letters, high efficiency LED lighting, either backlit or site lighting, and the familiar red brick that we see here could also be at the base of the stone as well, if we wanted to keep with that theme. Indigenous landscaping, which is also a requirement, well, landscaping is a requirement of the sign ordinance. We're looking for indigenous to create that rain garden effect so that we can point to this as an example of a rain garden installation for anybody in the community who may wish to incorporate that into their own projects, which we're seeing more and more of with the stormwater ordinance as well. Next, I would like to talk about font. justification, and some of the language content. We'll turn all these back around again at the end and let you consider everything in its entirety. So here we've organized the information in 2 columns, either center justified or left justified, in the left column or the right column. But side by side, they have the same text font. And while you see a myriad of options here, it really boils down to 2 font types. There's a serif font, one that has, you know, the fancy little tails on each one of the characters, and the simpler font, the sans serif font. So the sans serif is a Gills Sans font, and the serif font is a Garamond font. So for example, across the top, we have both the sans font, the Gills Sans being utilized, just center justified or left justified. Here we have a combination of the Garamond font, one in italics with the words Village of, center justified, left justified. Color combination, once again with the Garamond font, center, left justified. And finally, a combination of the serif font and the Welcome To language and the sans serif font in the actual Downers Grove language as well. In addition to this, we've introduced here the differing language. So Welcome To versus Village Of. The idea of the Welcome To is to be a more inclusive, welcoming message from the entire community rather than just from the village organization, to bring in some of our governmental partners. Next, the concept of color. So here we're just trying to offer some ideas about different color options, both in the sign face background as well in the lettering itself. And rather than skew your opinions with color names, we've used only Roman numerals 1, 2, 3, and 4. Color names can tend to swing people's opinions in and of themselves. This color is somewhat indicative of the Downers Grove logo, and we've got a deeper version of that as version 4. Lastly, we're going to see the inclusion of the village logo into the design. Which takes me over here. So here we see the logo in silhouette form with various degrees of prominence in the design from top to bottom, various colors and hues of color, with number 3 being the most typical use of the logo in the green color that you see. One thing that we would like to point out about utilizing the logo is that it does have a detrimental effect on the text size, simply because of the amount of space that it takes up on the sign, which could impact the legibility of the sign, particularly as you're traveling past in a vehicle. So that being said, I will redisplay everything so that you can take it all in its entirety. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Why did we decide, staff-wise, for this presentation to utilize the Sears home as a starting block? You know, we heard today about the Save the 942 Maple home, and we were talking about Victorians and that type of architecture from years ago. Why is it that we've decided to go this route?
We were looking for iconic features. You may remember that our first thing we said is we wanted to make sure it's timeless. So we were looking for design elements that were contemporary and evoke our history. So we're looking for design elements. We also wanted to make sure that it was consistent with elements you might see throughout the community. And so we started looking at all sorts of features throughout the community, and it wasn't so much the craftsman design itself as the concept of the brick or stone base with a column that is found in a variety of designs, most commonly in the Sears homes and craftsman style, but as you saw earlier, in a lot of the modern neo-traditional designs too throughout the community. And in fact, if you start to drive around residential neighborhoods and notice these and look for them, they are ubiquitous. They're just everywhere. So it wasn't exactly a particular era, or a particular architectural style. It was looking for things that are throughout the community and iconic to our community. Remember, we showed images of iconic designs that were timeless. We think it's not so much the architectural style, but the concept of the column and the support.
Alex, how wide is the double-sided small monument sign? Do we think that that would fit in most right-of-ways without being in the sight line or vision, or even so close to like our fancy white brick sign where it gets splattered with, plow debris?
Yeah,
Looks like it's 6 feet tall, but I mean, it looks
like it's about 6 feet wide.
Is
It's
it?
5 feet wide, the one on the right is 5 feet wide, and the design on the left, the outrigger is approximately 6 feet wide, the base is 2 feet by 2 feet. Precise right-of-way locations haven't been identified to determine how close they would be.
Okay. I like the revision. I think it does look less real estate sign-like. I actually like the smaller version of the large one for the small monument sign myself. I still like the red brick component rather than the stone a lot. As we go through the different sign face and colors and justifications, I was talking about the logo before, and I really like the logo, but I agree that it takes away from the size of the font, and then also it doesn't even have a full logo also, because you've got to cut the top of that off. One thing I do like about the logo poster is the founded in or established 1832. I think that's an important part of our history that I would like to see on these signs over here. So I think if number 4 and C are the same, which it looks like they are, that would be my choice. I know we're not making choices tonight, but to further the conversation, to see where the economics might come into and where a professional design team, not that the professionals here aren't able to design because they've done an excellent job. I like that letter C or number 4 as the design, if we can incorporate that founded in or established into the bottom of the text as well.
Now, if we happen to get a good consensus on direction, we would like to hand this over to the design professionals who can not only design it, but can build it and then give us some hard numbers on construction and then get back to you. So if we happen to have that direction tonight, that's fantastic.
Can I ask a question about the lighting of the sign? So you were talking about the letters would be lit behind, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you can see this example, for instance, in the Lyle sign. Many communities use it, but Lyle happens to do it as well, where the letters are die-cast standoff letters, so there's a space behind them, and then there's LED rope lighting that traces the outline of the letter, so that when it's illuminated, it backlights against the background, and the letters stand out as a bold figure in a lit background. That's one option, or you can have site lighting that shines up upon it.
Well, I guess I'd just I would wonder, the difference in cost, because that seems like would be more expensive than
site lighting.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, I should kind of know.
Can I ask a question on top of your question?
Yeah.
So we would say
That's
that
a soundbite.
the monument sign at Station 2 is site lighting because the lights shine up onto the sign. If we had any issues with those lights with snow, vandalism, or other things like that, not working, or, I look at the vandalism stuff probably closer than others do because I have to take care of that, just like you should know about LED rope lights. So that's why number 2 over here, it's a nice color, but I can see that getting vandalized and then showing up more than the darker background. But the site lighting, if there was an actual...
You just put a camera on it,
I
saw.
the ground, I could see that being more
Yes.
attractive to
Exactly.
getting messed around.
And it tends to be more of a maintenance issue when you have ground lighting like that, as opposed to integrated into the sign design.
I guess my thought about that was just that if it's broken, and you're replacing maybe the whole sign, this whole part, rather than putting some new lights in. But that's just, a thought. I just think it all looks great. I'm not so keen on the logo, but I like the darker colors. I like either of those two, actually. So that's my opinion.
What about the small monument one? Do you have a preference on either one of those?
No.
Well, I agree that I have concerns about the use of the logo just because of the difference in size of the typeface. I wonder, is there a way we could shrink the tree and still keep it on there, or have contrasting colors, turn it into a silhouette, something like that? It would be nice to incorporate it.
Yeah, we want to focus on the design of the actual placard. I think the big discussion is in the construction of the frame. We get direction on that. The placard can change, but I think we can incorporate the logo, but we can do it in a deconstructed way where, I mean, just look at any Major League Sports logo. There's a lot of different varieties of it that invokes the logo, but it isn't the logo. I mean, just think about it. There's all kinds of
Think about the Cubs and the Packers.
Think of all kinds of logos that invoke the team's logo, but it's not the actual logo because it's made to fit into a hat or pin or whatever. And so what I'd like to see is something that nodded or evoked the logo, but doesn't necessarily have to be so literally the logo that we're jamming into the sign.
That really sticks out.
There's things where you could have it in the background and the letters are more prominently featured in front, and there's a lot of design things that can be done.
This is the kind of idea I'm talking about.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. I think we got to focus on the actual frame, because let's face it, that's where the money is. And if you're talking about vandalism and placement and lighting, those are the issues we got to focus on. Because the actual placard is something we may even want to could be an engineering contest or volunteer designers who frankly have already volunteered to help out with the design for no cost in terms of the placard. But, I mean, just to finish up then on my own comment with respect to the frame, I tend to agree that the mini-me is probably my preference.
You mean the one on the
other
right?
one just looks like a shorter realtor sign.
Yes, it's just weird looking, that.
I'm running with the mini-me now. I'm gonna go with the mini-me too. I think
Instead of the big me everywhere, just a mini me?
Yeah, well, no, I like the big me, but I like the idea of calling it mini-me, and I also prefer the mini-me as opposed to the other.
I prefer Junior.
But as far as the rest of the potential options here, I prefer centered justified. What's that?
Are you cufflinks, village logo cufflinks?
Yeah, did you notice that? Yeah, we got all the
I had a
books.
custom made.
See?
Now we know who's making the money of the lawyer around here.
It's an unauthorized use of our logo.
No kid. No comment was there. Also, did you bring back some presidential cufflinks with your presidential resident?
I'll get you a pair too.
Okay.
Yeah, no, as far as the rest of it, centered, I prefer the center justified. I like the serif font, since I'm going way down the rabbit hole and dealing with all the details, and kind of in keeping with the college theme from earlier tonight, since I'm a Michigan State University graduate. Anything that incorporates green and white is fine with me.
That's why I want with orange and blue, David.
So you want to talk money?
Yeah, that's what I want to talk about. I don't talk about the black and white here, not the green and the blues. I think this is all fine. I think the mayor's right. We really need to look at really where the economics are with all the pressing and other issues we have in our community. Yes, we do have a mirage of all kinds of signs that we have here, which are rather embarrassing, but they've been up for how long? It's just part of the uniqueness, I guess, of Downers Grove, but don't there's a charm. But I really am more, if it takes me to support this to move forward, because we're going to count to 4, I would do so only because I really want to know what the true numbers are. And I know that it's going to be a budgeted item. It's not going to be all signs in 1 year. It'll be a couple here and then, down the road. So that's what I would like to know, really more so about the numbers. And I do have concerns like Becky does regarding the signs, the lighting itself. And I don't remember if it's, and I'm not that adverse with the types of lighting there is, but is Allen on Fairview and Ogden, their lighting, is that backlit? Is that what that is?
Go west on Maple Avenue.
Okay.
Cross the expressway, look at the center median sign for that community to our west, and you'll see what they're talking about.
Okay.
I'll drop by tonight and get you some answers to that too. That's what we're contemplating.
Okay.
Do you like the mini-me or the realtor's sign for the small one?
No, I absolutely do not like the one on the left. I never did, even no matter what size you put it. I like the mini-me, I like the large one. But it all comes down to dollars and cents for me.
So, you may remember from the last time that some background information, we have $100,000 in this year's budget for this sign project, and we thought that it would be at least 2 signs and possibly more installed under that budget. And then it would be a multi-year program to go through the village, identify the spots where we put them, budget for each year and go forward. At the risk of sounding a little bit like a car dealer, I'm going to say this. Obviously, there are
absolutely free.
different features here, and they come at a different cost. And so we had said at the last meeting that if you did the smaller monument sign without lighting and without the rain garden, that was down around the $16,000, $17,000 per sign mark. If you went all the way up to the large monument sign and included the rain garden and included the lighting and all that stuff, it could be around $30,000. And there could be situations where that cost could rise above $30,000 if we have to extend electricity or the type of design of rain garden or the landscaping, et cetera. So what we like to do is get an understanding, if we want to talk budget, much like going to a car dealer, we could fit you into any one of these signs if you tell us how much the council would like to spend on these signs, and we can go through sort of a trade-off. For 15, you can get this, for 20, you can get this, for 30, you can get this kind of a...
Yeah, and that's a fair point. And like many things, we establish a budget and then we direct staff to work within the budget, given the direction. Here's the thing, and I hate to evoke something that was said earlier today, but price doesn't equate to value. I think the value in this proposition is having a consistent brand message throughout the community. It doesn't have to be an expensive one, it just has to be a consistent one that properly reflects our brand of our community in a recognizable and memorable way. And that can be done, I think, within less than the dollars we were talking, far less than the dollars we were talking about last time. It's more about that brand, that value. I mean, that's to me where the value is, not so much in having a $50,000 gateway sign. I don't think that's where the value comes from, just because it costs more.
But to jump in on that, Martin, I think you could then say something like this becomes part of your brand. So you incorporate the sign, the logo, everything is one package, and now you've got a whole different set of brand.
To that very point, let me pick up on that, because if we have the right kind of placard, does the frame have to be so expensive? As long as we have a nice brand that reflects, you know you're in Downers Grove, you see that brand, it's carried through on our flag and our signs in different places. I mean, just like any sports franchise or any successful business that has that brand identity, where people identify with and have and put value into the brand identity. That's what we're really trying to achieve here in Downers Grove. So I think I'm probably skewing towards a lower cost, as long as we have a good, because the placard I don't think is going to be nearly anywhere near as much as the frame.
That's correct.
So I think that if we have that brand, which then also, by the way, if it gets damaged, if we 10 years from now change logos, have a grade school contest or something like that, the placard can change with a much lower cost than the frames. So the frames need to be, I think they need to be smartly placed for all the issues that have been raised before. I think they need to be durable so that we're not doing this every 10 years. And again, I think there's a consistency in the design, and I don't think it necessarily has to be that expensive. So if you were telling me that we could do something that looked pretty decent for $20,000, it was durable, it would be placed in a good spot. Yeah, I know the rain garden is a nice lead by example thing, but we have to have trade-offs here, so we may or may not get to that right away. It could be something that comes later. I think having that consistent brand identification, that's the real value proposition here. And it really addresses the problem that we've had for the last 30 years, which is this mismatch of outdated, disjointed, no brand.
Jumping on back, Martin's comments here, if you're talking about the budget, I think we really need to determine is where are the key, and I know all entrances to the village are key, but really where are the true key entrances that we really want to shine? Do we want to allocate the funds, the heavier price, or the additional dollars into signs that are in the Class A corporate sector, where we know that the international headquarters that we've been so lucky to receive as new residents in our community, they have branding. Is that an expectation that they have or the property owners have for us as we go down this avenue, versus where you're coming into a residential area and you don't necessarily need it lit 24/7?
Well, and not to jump in again, but to your point,
that's fine.
one of the things that I'm phasing this in is if we pick 2 or 3 or 4 it's probably going to be 4, north, south, east, and west, key gateways, and put them in, then people can see whether they, like, hey, that's really cool, we should have one here too. Correct. Then it's the community speaking. Correct. It's not just us throwing them all in and then
That would
getting a
lend
reaction.
itself well for a 2015 project to do 4 with the direction you've given us with the $100,000 budget, which would settle in at a maximum of 25 per. I think that's greatly achievable, especially with the direction you've given so far. So if I'm looking for head nods on that general approach, we could take the next step to turn a designer loose after a competitive selection process to say, we want 4 of them for no more than 25 per sign, and they need to be all the quality standards that the mayor has said, and they need to be similar to the preferred options here. That was great direction, if that's what I'm hearing.
for big signs, not the little guys.
I would start with the big ones because.
So the one on the right. Right, then you can see how people react to them and whether they think they're so cool they want to put them other places or not. And people are like, nah, I don't really want to put any more in. Okay, don't put any more in.
And they'll be constructed, I mean, we can also, jumping way ahead, if we want to see what one looks like, and we want to do some design samples, you want to see some materials, you want to see what the placard will look like as we go.
How about some 3D printing? They do have the library.
So that,
Got a business in town that does it, Curtis.
that general direction would be incredibly helpful, and that would give us the direction we need to keep this project moving ahead, and it doesn't lock us into anything.
The only thing I would add to the future design and scope of the project, and this is probably for Alex, you may be able to answer it, is the materials that we choose today have to be available in the future for this project to continue on. So as we go through with that design qualification, that would be something that I would want to make sure that we stress that it's kind of remakeable as the years go on. You know, I always think of Drive It when we talk about these kind of materials, and that stuff failed after I don't know how many years. A lot of houses had to get, you know, re-sided. So whatever material we use here, hopefully would be a better quality and more durable.
Well, I support what the manager just proposed. I think that sounds very reasonable. Keeps this process moving forward.
Yeah, I could live with that, doing something, do 4 within the existing budget. I actually see it a little less than that, but I can work within that range.
We haven't started any value engineering yet. Of course, we'll try to come in substantially less than that if we can possibly do that. And you, and the council would, of course, get to see this before it gets implemented.
Right. So as you say, we're not committed to anything yet.
I would also say the rain garden is great, but if that starts to creep the price up, we can put a rain garden in our new village hall or police department when we get that built.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's also something that can always be added later as long as we plan for it. We don't have to put it in now.
Could be an Eagle Scout project.
And Scout just left right before we got the work assigned.
He's been there long enough.
Just haven't shaved his head.
No, that's also in Barnett.
Well, Mayor, that is the direction we're looking for. We look for coming.
Does that make sense to everyone?
60 days or so?
Okay.
About 60 days, we can come back with some further refinements and maybe.
What about public comment?
Public comment?
Good job.
Wow! I'll say it right there. Best thing I've been here all week.
I was at the environmental concerns workshop, whatever you call it, and a woman from the Conservation Foundation was there and presented. We're in that pilot program. I wonder if, the rain garden could fall under
sure.
that kind of thing.
Good idea.
We have another one.
I said gold stars for attendance. You can get one for ideas too.
Sweet.
Maybe cufflinks. Please.
If I might make a suggestion, to carry the brickwork from the small sign over to the big sign, eliminate the stone.
This concept, John?
Yes, keep that, only enlarge it, eliminate the stone, which is going to be costly. To drive the cost up for that little bit of stone, which people driving by at 35 miles an hour won't see.
Yeah.
And I'll be glad to speak to anyone afterwards about some of the masonry detailing. That would be problematic in the future.
So you're saying take this brick here.
No, he's trying to say take the mini-me but make it the maxi-me.
Right.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Which, I'd be fine with that.
Same sign, only.
But still, you still like the stone cap on top of the mason.
One piece stone cap, no leaks.
You start to look how the value engineering could come into
Yeah,
play.
and that's where the cost issue is going to start.
Scalable signs.
Send us in that direction.
Absolutely.
Good suggestion.
I think it's cleaner too. I think it's a cleaner look. The just brick is, you're looking at the sign, there's not as much busyness going on around it with the different materials.
There's better contrast between the pillars and the red brick than the pillars and the gray brick.
With today's technology, is there any way we could take this sign and lay it into an existing photograph of where it's gonna go?
Sure.
So we can really see it? I mean, it looks really awesome here, it's like on a country club, but in
And that's
reality...
actually the location of the one right now over at...
This is true. That's Greg's backyard.
Where's that at?
That's Greg's backyard.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
And Donald's location. Yeah, 75th and Don. Or excuse me, Lamont and Don.
The triangle.
Southside location.
Yeah, I know the south side very well, but I don't remember seeing it that...
Yeah, there is one there, and we just swapped it with that one.
So we can take the...
It's such an effective sign now, you don't even know it's there.
Yeah, hence why we don't spend more than $100,000.
The problem slide.
Well, if that's a lay-in, that's pretty
So
darn...
it's actually this, is that location?
Oh, yeah.
See, you see the same push.
Interesting.
Yeah, we could do that with all the locations.
Okay. Well, I think we have some great direction, and we'll come back to you in about 60 days.
Anything else?
That's it, man.
All right.